Instantly, the water lost its vibrant blue color. In fact, the once pure puddle which contained life for water creatures turned black. Corpses among corpses of water life filled the pond. Fish, leaves, frogs, and even some select insects rose from the water, dead. The water then quickly started to spin and twist. It was angry. Massive waves crashed on the shore of where he stood. Suffer, fester, bring despair to the end of the realms. Keep the hidden paths of the gods unlocked. Mortal flesh digressing corruption. Bring despair. Kurai Shinin, Dark Abyss, Naruto muttered. Within his realm, the shinigami stiffened and he gazed into the direction that Naruto was in. So, Naruto had acquired enough of the earth's spiritual essence that this would happen. True, the shinigami had gambled on this happening when he had blessed his young, blonde summoner with opening the first door of his celestial inhibitors. The god of death had been planning to tell the blonde about them much later, but if this was happening then sooner was going to have to be the alternative. The celestial inhibitors were within every living thing on the planet. However, most, if not all, mortals were unaware of it. These inhibitors were what kept locked because mortals couldn't handle the intake of spiritual power. And, the reason most mortals didn't know about them was that, it took one of the 4 original gods to open them. Amaterasu had opened the most gates for humans, being 3 humans. Tsukuyomi had only done 2, and Susanoo had done 1. Now, they could add the shinigami to their list. Most mortals like to believe that their bodies are specially designed that they can handle the strain, but Shin doubted that even a quarter of the world's population actually could do that. For some of these people, these inhibitors were at most loosened. Which was why mortals claimed to see spirits, enter the realm of the dead, or speak with apparitions. It was all due to the celestial inhibitors, and Shin had unlocked the first of 10 doors for Naruto. Now, don't mistake Shin. Naruto was indeed his summoner and he could speak with spirits anyway, but by opening this inhibitor, he had easily given Naruto access to the widest range of capabilities which limited him as a mortal before. One would probably ask what the shinigami was trying to achieve by doing this. It was actually simple, the shinigami wanted to achieve interesting things. How odd though, the shinigami was sure that Naruto shouldn't have had so much honsho that this was an occurrence. Unless, his body was naturally attuned to the spiritual realm already. If that was the case then dare he believe that Naruto had been absorbing double, no triple the amount of what the average human would absorb from the earth. For once, Shin shuddered at the thought if the boy's valve released the rest of his locked power. Now that would be very amusing. Still, he could feel his summoner's soul in pain and that couldn't stand. The souls of each life which had been destroyed in the Forsaken Pond screeched with rage, wrath, and hatred. In his hands, Naruto licked his lips before he devoured them, cries and all. The pond quickly exploded and the water splashed on Naruto's face. Yuri quickly came running. "Ni-chan, are you okay?" Yuri asked. Naruto panted as he opened his eyes. "Yuri, what happened? What was I doing?" Naruto asked, the mask clear from his face. Naruto shook his head while Yuri slowly helped him to his feet. His aura slowly began to calm him for a moment. Once he was safely standing, Yuri offered him a small smile. "Looks like all that power isn't too good for you," she remarked. Naruto turned to her for a moment and he offered a rather nervous laugh. He settled for agreeing with her, though he wasn't as sure as he probably wanted it to look like. "Anyway, let's get back to me trying that. I bet I'll knock them all dead when I show them what I can do," Yuri encouraged. She walked off, apparently happy at the thought of training again now that Naruto had showcased his latest form. Naruto watched her go before he turned back to the pond. The corpses of marine life which once filled the blue water startled him. What happened to them? Naruto didn't recall seeing this before. It was like a wave of death apart from what he had experienced dealing with had swept over the pond. The young Jinchuriki cautiously stepped away from the pond. He hoped some training with Yuri would get his mind off his ordeal. Naruto had no way of knowing how twisted the pupils in his eyes looked for a moment. He's an idiot. Of all the stupid things he could have done, this is by far the stupidest thing I have ever seen him do. He's never going to be Hokage if he goes through with this. The Hokage is a public figure. Everyone's going to hate him. Who's going to respect someone who has such a blatant disregard for his own morals? He's going to become a pariah, Sakura exclaimed. Kaharu watched the young medic walk circles in her office structure. Normally, Koharu wouldn't tolerate blatant loitering, especially in her own office. Well, Koharu was developing something of a soft spot for the lone female of the former Team 7. Plus, it wasn't like Koharu couldn't see what Sakura was saying. Still, she didn't think she needed to tell the young girl how unlikely it would be that boy would ever become Hokage. I do agree with you, Sakura-san. It is a very unorthodox situation, however, there are hardly laws within the village to deter such a relationship, despicable as it is. I do believe that we must make Naruto-san's future secure. As his friend, I know you would like this as well. We can make him come to his senses and then he will be able to rebuild his reputation. Despite what you might think, his reputation has been steadily rising. The Uzumaki clan have significant political, financial, and even some economic clout. That alone helps them immensely, Koharu said. Sakura slowly agreed. She knew this as well. No one could make fun of Naruto anymore. Well, it's not like he hung out with the rest of them for too much time anyway. Sometimes, everyone was lucky if they even saw him once a month. If anything, she had heard that he spent most of his time either with his family or with his new team. Something Sakura didn't actually like. Why was it that she was the only one not a part of the team? Just because she didn't know how to use a sword. How do we handle that? I mean, I agree. I think that idiot will come to his senses sometime down the line, but for now, he won't, and he can be as thick-headed as an Akamichi about food. What do you have in mind, Koharu-sama? Sakura asked. She turned around and gave a small apology for her unorderly behavior in Koharu's office, however the elderly councilwoman paid it no mind. I do believe it to be a rather simple matter, Sakura-san. In order to secure Naruto-san's future as a potential Hokage candidate, then I do believe we can make use of a certain event that will be going on near the end of the month, Koharu answered. Sakura couldn't hide her relief at these words. She just hoped that Naruto would see reason. Hopefully, the rest of his family would follow as well. Then this foolishness could stop once and for all. Though, I'm surprised, Koharu-sama. I don't mean to make light of your good intentions, but with how you claimed the council meeting had gone the last time, I figured you wouldn't like Naruto anymore, Sakura questioned. Sakura had to admit that the smile Koharu gave made a shiver run through her spine. There was no hatred, happiness, or even neutrality in that smile. Sakura just saw a very unnerving smile. Sakura, you will learn growing up that politics have a way of shifting who and what you like. Now then, I will be sure to keep you updated on events. For now, you have duties back at the hospital. Do our soldiers proud and look after them, Koharu said. Hi, I will see you then, Koharu-sama, Sakura said. She turned around and walked out of Koharu's office. Koharu merely gave a small wave, but her eyes quickly showcased a sinister look. Sigh, sometimes Koharu both appreciated and despised the naivete of the growing kunoichi. It didn't take a very bright person to manipulate them. All it took was just someone who could see the comings and goings of political pull. And, if Koharu got some payback during the actions, then that was all the better. However, right now, she would have to go see Homura about some other issues. Then she would send her proposal to the Hokage. If that novice had any such experience in dealing with the village's safety, then naturally Koharu's proposal would be the better option. But for now, Koharu was willing to play it out. Well, I don't know what help I can provide. I'm glad no harm has befallen Yuri-san and Yura-san. I understand that Naruto has come to greatly care for them. Still, if he believes that I can be of some assistance, then I will help as soon as I am able. Aside from this, could you please inform Naruto that the Hyuga would like to make another purchase of Uzumaki ink? Hiyashi asked from his sitting place on the map. Kushina chuckled, which drew Hiyashi's confusion for a moment. Sorry, I didn't mean the laugh. You don't have to buy ink from us, Hiyashi. We're family after all. We each signed the blood pact. Yukimaru-kun and Hanabi-san are equally comfortable with each other, which has always been a bonus to that effect. I know Naruto wouldn't be able to forgive himself if he charged you. Merely send someone over to collect it. We'll have what you need, Kushina returned. Hiyashi offered a pleasant smile. I see, that is very gracious of you. Well, I do recommend the clan stop by. If I do say so myself, but the Hyuga host a very well-known acupuncture section that has been highly regarded by many a people, Hiyashi said. That definitely sounded like a good idea to Kushina. She was sure that her family and some of their family would take Hiyashi up on his generous offer. Kushina found her gaze turning outside. She watched a couple of side branch Hyuga conversing comfortably with main branch Hyuga. Given that Kushina had seen the, she admitted, despicable disregard for family ties the Hyuga had when she was still alive previously, this was a welcome change to her eyes. Children practiced together under Hyuga elders and teachers. Side branch members happily tended to the gardens around the compound, that Kushina could see, and for once the animosity between both branches had dwindled. Kushina wasn't so hopeful as to believe that this animosity was completely gone, but it was a vast improvement. Hiyashi followed her eyes for a moment and his gaze softened over his clan. I owe a great deal of debt to Naruto-san. Hizashi has been a great counsel in advocation for the side branch. I try to make things up to him on a day-by-day period. When he had told me that only in death could he be free of our mark, I had not the will to argue with him. Though, the Byakugan must be protected, as it is a coveted dojutsu, for my brother to claim that death would be better than living with his own family. I couldn't take the shame with Neji. Hiyashi paused for a moment. He collected in Kushina's reaction. She didn't have much to give. Her face was a solid expression of neutrality. She only watched Hiyashi collect himself. I, in my power, cannot erase the seal which binds them. I am sorry Kushina, but clan traditions run very strongly. I'm sure you can attest to this. However, I have been making sure that a family remembers what it must fight for. It was might for each of its members. I have come to understand that very well. I knew this when I was blessed to have Hanako return to my side. It is truly a dark humor. Only by losing something important do you understand the significance of keeping what you hold dear. Now, I have a chance to repay not just Hizashi, but also Hanako for my ways from before, Hiyashi replied. Kushina turned back to the compound. Perhaps it was a bit conceited of her, but she liked to think that her son's immoral love for her had been the catalyst which caused this whole thing to happen. So how is your third child coming along? Kushina asked. Hiyashi offered another light smile, though this could only be told if the person personally knew Hiyashi himself. The man wasn't prone to smiling in front of people often. Hanako has been to the hospital for a couple of weeks. They tell me that the baby is healthy. Hanada and Hanabi are equally excited. The elders are being difficult, but nothing we cannot prepare for, Hiyashi replied. Kushina offered a wide smile with a nod of her own. However, her smile didn't last for very long before her eyes steeled. She brought her gaze to the mat. Did you hear about the Chunin exams? Kushina asked. Hiyashi's pleasant disposition quickly vanished and he folded his arms inside of his long silk robes. Now, this was a discussion that Hiyashi had been meaning to have ever since the announcement had been made. Hiyashi didn't like this and he was sure that Kushina knew he didn't like it. Hi, I have heard it as well. Earth Country's daimyo has a family member who married a Sunagakur noble related to the Wind Country's daimyo. In honor of their marriage, they are hosting the Chunin exams in Iwagakure. I fear that someone's moving their plans behind the scenes. Iwagakure has constantly claimed a state of neutrality with Sunagakur. For this to suddenly happen, I fear that we're seeing a delicate power shift here, Hiyashi said. Kushina feared that was the case as well and she didn't like it. Kushina then released a sigh and shook her head. Well, I suppose I might be worrying about nothing. A marriage should, away, be, Hano. Kushina slowly panted as her vision grew blurry. She couldn't focus on Hiyashi's form anymore. She also felt hot. Kushina felt very hot. She groaned as she fell to the side and bashed her head into the carpet. It took Hiyashi a moment to register what had happened before he brought himself to reality. Kushina-san. Kushina-san. Hiyashi called. He quickly ran over to her aid. Hiyashi bent down and he took a look at her features. Hiyashi could see sweat pour from the top of her head and onto the floor mats. Her breathing was sporadic. Hiyashi cursed and jumped to his feet. He pushed open the doors which led to the outside. Call our medics. Someone take Kushina-san to a bedroom. Hurry. Hiyashi ordered. Both main and side branch members moved without a single word of complaint. Hiyashi watched as one of the male Hyuga gently picked up the wheezing red-haired Uzumaki. The young Hyuga carried her off through the rest of the compound with Hiyashi close behind. Hiyashi quickly opened the door to the medical wing of their compound. The person who carried her gently rested Kushina on the bed. Her visage had only worsened on the walk over. Her heart quickened when she was laid to rest on the bed. Hiashi was at her side. "And Naruto," Kushina called. She raised her hand into the air. Hiashi quickly grabbed it. "Kushina-san, what's wrong?" Hiashi asked. Kushina tightly closed her eyes. Then, much to Hiyashi's surprise, Kushina screamed out in pain. Hiashi watched as her red hair was quickly and easily overcome by the silver color of Honsho. Seals and runes which Hiashi couldn't even hope to identify appeared over her body. Black markings seared her skin. Each seal connected itself to a rune next to it. Hiashi and the other Hyuga who joined him could hardly speak as the aura which surrounded her began to fluctuate about the room. Hiashi-sama, look outside," one of them said. Hiashi glanced out the window and he could not hold his astonishment. The sky, which had been full of the sun's glory, was pitch black with a massive pillar of white light. That white pillar separated the sky in such an array of light that no doubt it was seen by nearly all of Konoha, and Hiashi knew the direction it was coming from. It was originating from the Uzumaki compound. "Place Kushina-san in a barrier. I will stay with her. I will not let Naruto-san's mother endure this pain on her own. Remember that the Uzumaki clan are now our blood brethren. Do what you can to aid them," Hiashi ordered. The Hyuga around him agreed. Hiashi braved Kushina's pressure and aura. All the while, he never left her side and he looked out into the world. What was happening? Tsunade cursed as she pushed Shikaku out of the way of a falling bookcase. The earth rumbled around Konoha. Shikaku couldn't hold his surprise and gasped as the floors of the Hokage mansion began to crack. "An earthquake?" Shikaku asked. He watched as the windows which separated the Hokage from the outside world crashed and scattered into pieces. Tsunade covered her head as glass fell on the floors. "There were no signs of an earthquake," Tsunade said. Despite the rumbling, she managed to reach Shikaku. She helped the head of the Nara clan to his feet. Both had been going over some field reports for the local Jonin in the village until the sounds of the earth's anger became apparent. Tsunade quickly released a breath and turned to the Jonin commander. "Shikaku, organize the shinobi. We need to protect the children and the civilians. Contact all available shinobi and get them on the defense. We're going to have a mess to clean up and I want everyone ready for the repair," Tsunade said. A massive rumble was the response to her question. However, Shikaku didn't utter a word. Tsunade turned around and she noticed Shikaku looking out of the broken windows. "Shikaku, wake up. We don't have time to." Tsunade stared out the window. Tsunade wondered if she was dreaming. She had to be. Tsunade stared down at her village, Konoha. It was the village that her father had helped found. It was a nation that had long stood the tests of time and the trials of the world. Was this another one? Tsunade wasn't sure, but she knew who was doing this. Only one person could cause the spirits of the damned to walk, float among the living. Tsunade watched as a massive wall of light poured from northeast of the village and into the sky. The clouds darkened while rain and lightning fell from the sky. People screamed in terror and horror as spectral bodies tormented them. The ground split open in the village and Tsunade watched an enormous pillar of white fire explode, releasing the demons of hell that were only ever told about in folklore. The screeches of otherworldly beings stiffened her. For once in her life, Tsunade was afraid of Naruto. Something had to be done about this. Tsunade and Shikaku felt a bead of sweat as they watched the hole in the sky open. Even the lightning changed color into a beautiful if frightening white color. "Tsunade-sama, look out!" Shikaku hollered as he grabbed Tsunade and pulled her back to the floor. Tsunade could barely register the action before she and Shikaku heard a loud noise crashing just inches from them. The blonde woman and her Jonin commander felt the high winds along their faces. They couldn't recall the windows being exploded open this much. Once the noise stopped for a brief period, both opened their eyes. Tsunade and Shikaku couldn't speak. The Godime Hokage found herself staring at her village. Half of the Hokage mansion, the academy, and even a portion of the Hokage stone faces were completely obliterated without a single trace. Tsunade closed her eyes and sighed. "Shikaku," she said. Her throat felt dry when he turned to her. The female Hokage swallowed the lump in her throat. "When this is over, I want available forces to find Uzumaki Naruto and detain him," Tsunade said. Shikaku didn't say anything. He just lowered his head and accepted the order. Hold him down. Quickly. I can't. He's too strong. Ah! Yuri gasped as she watched she and Gurren slam into the ground. She coughed and Gurren groaned. Yuri stared in awe as an unholy scream shook itself through the Uzumaki compound. Yuri screamed as a wave of Honsho blasted from the center of the field and into the sky. Yuri fell on her back and squinted an eye open. "En-ni-chan," Yuri said. Another loud howl echoed in everyone's ears as they rushed down from the house. Yuri didn't even remember what happened. She and Naruto had just been finished having lunch when she asked her lover for more training. Naruto was happy to oblige her for a moment. Yet, as soon as they walked out of the door, Naruto started screaming. It was such a shock to Yuri. She tried to get him to tell her what was wrong, but it wasn't long before she blasted away from him. She saw malicious entities of death circle in the sky. She and Gurren had been the first to hear the commotion and tried to help Naruto, but his aura had blasted them away. Even Yuri was beginning to feel uncomfortable. She felt something in her head grinding at her, screaming at her, berating her, hating her. It was filled with such hatred that it almost overwhelmed Yuri in its bloodlust. She could also feel the pain of her brother's soul. He was in agony and his body ached for relief. But Yuri didn't know what that relief was. "What's going on?" Fujika's asked, coming out of the house, sword in hand. Yuri watched she and Gurren struggle to their feet. "No idea, but we gotta get Naruto to stop. He's destroying everything," Gurren shouted. The wind blasted in her face. At the center of the field, Naruto laid on his knees still screaming. Yura ran out of the house with some of her weaponry. The tenders to the field quickly exited the compound and as per the safety guidelines. The ground ripped out from under him. Fuka couldn't even open her eyes, the light was too bright. "Oni-sama, stop. You're destroying everything," Yura called to him. Naruto didn't hear her. He just continued to scream his lungs out utter pain and agony that everyone wondered if he was somehow going to die. "Shikyo-sama," Fujika's called. He raced to Naruto's aid, but it wasn't long until he was blasted away from the former blonde now silver-haired young man's personal space. The force was strong enough that Fujika's slid across the dirt and into a section of the forest. Fujika's groaned as he wiped some blood from his lips. "Tch," Fuka sucked her teeth and quickly sped through some hand signs. Yuri and Yura gasped as Fuka took in a large breath of air. "Sweden. Suiryu Kobaku, water release. Water dragon biting explosion," Fuka called out. She quickly released 10 large balls of water from her mouth and into the air. The waters swiftly merged together and everyone noticed a very large water dragon dominate the skies. "What are you doing?" Gurren asked. Quickly, Komachi stepped out of the house in time to see the action happen. The dragon snarled as it appeared over Naruto's screaming body. Fuka quickly ushered the dragon down over him. Fuka and the others glanced up and the young redhead gasped in fear when she saw a strike of lightning rush through the sky. No, I just wanted something to wake him up. He'll really get hurt," Fuka said to herself. The dragon gave a mighty roar before it was consumed by the white lightning. It slammed into the ground over their clan head. Everyone quickly jumped back from the area in time to see the water crash into the trees, bringing them down in a mixture of destruction and creation. Everyone landed safely away by going to the rooftops of their home. "Fuka, why did you do that? We're trying to help him, not hurt him," she claimed. Fuka gave a small huff. It hadn't gone how she had wanted in the slightest. She could see that from the frustration on her face. He didn't press the issue any more than that. Fuka looked like she was already contemplating the issue as it was. "I don't get it. He was fine nearly all morning and then this?" Yuri asked. No one knew how to respond to her. How they wished Riza and Kushina were home currently. One could only hope that they would be able to deal with this situation. Hell, even Tayuya would have been helpful if she wasn't on the other side of the village doing some routine work for the torture and interrogation department. Maybe she could have lulled Naruto to sleep or something. Everyone waited for a moment. The water still flooded the area and the skies were still dark with energy and Naruto's aura, but they could no longer hear his screams. It was something they were thankful for. However, that thankfulness slowly turned to worry as seconds turned to minutes with nothing happening. "I think we need to go down there now. He hasn't come out of the water, and while he can't die, I'd rather not test it," Gurren said. The others agreed. Everyone was ready to go down until they saw the water start to steam. Bubbles exploded over the water's surface. The group watched the water separate. The waters gently moved away from the household compound and into the nearby forest. "Shikyo-sama," Fujika said, a dreaded feeling rising from within him. Once the water settled, everyone was immensely surprised when they saw Naruto standing at the center of the field, sword in hand. Yet, Yuri could tell. Something was wrong with him. Something was dreadfully wrong with him. Never mind that there wasn't a single bit of damage from the jutsu that could be seen on him. He seemed so unresponsive. Plus, there was that white, porcelain Hanya mask on his face. The way it resembled the Shinigami's face chilled everyone's body. Its long, sharp horns, and those sharp jagged teeth were not filling everyone with confidence. Naruto's eyes had even changed. Gone were the light blue eyes that Yuri and Ura loved so much, replaced by them were two black slitted pupils and two yellow-filled corneas. His once majestic white robes were now completely black, and his once white hair that made Yuri question if he were even mortal, was now long, black, and spiky at the same time. Everyone cautiously stepped onto the wet ground. Fuka seemed relieved that Naruto was even standing after that. "Naruto, are you okay?" Gurren asked. He didn't respond to her. He just continued to stare at the house. Everyone glanced at each other. Fujika's took a hesitant step forward. His master's aura, there was something dark in it. The formerly deceased leader of Iron Country could tell that much. Fujika's parted from the group and stepped before Naruto. "Shikyo-sama, it is I, Fujika's, at your service." Are you of sound mind?" the swordsman asked. Naruto still didn't look at him. Fujika's reached out to touch Naruto. He wondered if he could get that mask off Naruto's face. It looked very unsettling, and Fujika's wanted it off his master's face. As soon as Fujika's even assumed to be reaching for Naruto's mask, the blonde's eyes turned to him. Fujika's took a step back in worry. "Shikyo-sama, please, say something," Fujika's pleaded. He only watched Naruto's hand begin to glow. The others felt anxiety rise when a dark, black mist poured onto the ground. It quickly rose in the air and it took the form of Pakura. Pakura stepped out of the dark mist, the same white mask on her face. "Pakura-san?" Yura asked. The former Suna Kunoichi didn't move despite her name being called. Instead, she raised her hand to meet her face. Everyone watched her raise her hands into the air. Fujika's widened his eyes as a massive ball of black fire appeared overhead. Her eyes pierced death into their bodies. "Shikuden, Shokyakeru no Jutsu, Scorch Release, Incinerating Flare Technique," Pakura murmured. Fujika's and the others could hardly believe their eyes before Pakura launched the massive ball of fire at them all. Fujika's quickly jumped to the side and out of the way of the coming technique. Fuka and Gurren dashed out of the way while she grabbed Komachi and pulled her to the ground with him. Yuri and Ura could hardly believe their eyes as the ball of flame was just inches from passing them by. Somehow the ball missed the house and crashed into green behind it. The heat from the flames destroyed the trees, leaving them husks of their once flourishing mass. Meanwhile, the others were in disbelief. Naruto's summon had just attacked them. "Naruto, what are you doing? Stop her," Gurren called out. The blonde just continued to look at them. It was then that Pakura suddenly appeared in front of Gurren. The blue-haired Jonin couldn't even hold her surprise when the green-haired, orange-tipped woman spun her body. Her leg slammed into Gurren's cheek. Gurren slammed into the house, the air blasted from her lungs as she slid down to the ground. She snarled and turned around. "Naruto, snap out of it. What's wrong with you? It's us. Your family. Don, you recognize us?" she asked, but Naruto didn't respond to him. Instead, Naruto clenched his fist. Suddenly, Gari, Suiren, Yahiko, Dan, and Kimimaro appeared as well. All five held the varying Shinigami masks as Naruto did. Everyone was instantly on guard when each summon drew out a blade or some other form of weaponry. "What the, Ni-chan, what are you doing?" "It's me, Yuri, and Urane-chan. Can't you hear me?" Yuri asked. No, this couldn't be happening. Naruto loved them. Naruto loved them all. He loved his family. There had to be a reason for this. He wouldn't do this. Tears fell from Yuri's eyes. Yura stood in place, shaking. The one they both loved was attacking their family. "Gurren," Fuka called, but she turned around just in time to see Kimimaro in front of her. He swung a wide blade of bone in front of her. Fuka watched the weapon came down upon her, but it was quickly parried and blocked by Komachi. Komachi placed the full weight of her body into her blade and pushed Kimimaro off. Fuka released a breath as Komachi came down in front of her. Fuka steeled her nerve for a moment. "Thank you," she told Komachi. Komachi didn't reply and Fuka looked on. She could see the trembling in the former Anbu's body. Her cousin was not taking the situation well. It even appeared that even holding her sword at Naruto was proving to be a challenge. She just kept shaking. Kimimaro flipped through the air and landed on the ground. Quickie, Suiren jumped on his shoulder and hopped into the air. She grabbed her blade and held it overhead. She didn't get very far before she intercepted her with a kunai. He growled at her while she looked at him with cold, dark eyes. Both landed on the ground away from each other. The former Kumo nin noticed that the formerly living Kiri nin was ready to attack once again. He made sure he was ready to take her on. Damn it, what's going on here? Naruto wouldn't do this. I know he damn well wouldn't. Naruto, I'm going to trust you on this. This can't be your fault, she thought. That said, he quickly assessed the situation. Clear your heads, he told everyone else. They glanced at him in surprise. Naruto needs our help. As his family, we can't let him do this. Restrict yourself to non-lethal techniques. Take him out. We have to forcefully restrain him. She called to them all. He felt so bad when he saw the looks of utter shame and sadness on Yuri and Yura's face. How he had underestimated how much they loved him, but they had to do this. She turned around just in time to clash blades with Suiren. Damn, he had only seen her once. Her body structure didn't show it, but she was pretty damn strong if she had to give her a compliment. He honestly would have loved to spare with her if not for the current situation. He managed to roll backward and kick her away from him. She landed on her hands and swung her body. On the other side, Fujika's kept back Yahiko. The former leader of the Akatsuki swung his leg for a kick. Fujika's quickly countered with his own kick. The two swung their legs back and forth while their hands were a flurry of activity. Yahiko jumped into the air. Sweden. Mizoripa. Yahiko called out and a blast of water escaped from his lips. Fujika's drew back his blade. Senmai Isen, 1000 bladed flashes, Fujika said as he swung his blade so fast for anyone to possibly keep their eyes focused and sheathed it once again. The blast of water didn't reach him and scattered over the field. Yahiko hardly seemed deterred by the action. His masked eyes only expressed a hollow void of life. It was something the former general of the Land of Iron was having too much trouble understanding. Gurren groaned as she pushed herself off the broken piece of the house. She wobbled to her feet. Her hand wiped the blood from her lips. Naruto, what's happening to you? Gurren asked. The wielder of crystal techniques stilled when she noticed a shadow looming over her. She turned back and noticed Gari staring down at her. Bakugan, explosion release. Exploding fist, Gari called out. Gurren cursed and slammed her hands together. A wall of crystal separated her from Gari. His fist bashed the crystal causing a massive explosion of debris which drew everyone's attention. Gurren jumped out smoke and falling wood while Gari gently stepped on the dirt. He stared at her and he was ready to attack again. Gurren shifted herself into one of her family-famed taijutsu styles. The deceased Iwa nin seemed ready as well. Both were ready to charge at each other again. Stop it! Yuri yelled. Gurren and Gari caught each other's punches. The summons and the defending Uzumaki turned to her. Naruto, with Pakura and Kimimaro at his side, glared her. Ni-san, stop it. Stop it right now. I won't fight you. I know you. You love me. You love all of us. Please. Yuri begged. Yura looked at her sister. Why couldn't she say those words too? It tore her heart to see this, but she couldn't stop her trembling. She wanted to say that too, but she was so scared. She was scared of the Naruto in front of her. Yuri, she said as he tried to keep Suiren away from him. She gasped when he felt an overwhelming blast of energy upon him. She turned around and his breath nearly escaped from his body when he saw power exploding out of Suiren's body. Her yellow eyes glared murderously into his own. She grunted as Suiren pushed him into the ground. Gurren called, but she didn't have much time to worry about him before Gari jumped into the air over her head. Gurren watched him slam into the ground where she had been standing, ushering in a wide destruction of the ground. Gurren rolled on the ground in utter shock. Gari arose from the dirt unscathed, glaring furiously at Gurren. The Jonin raised a crystal blade from her arm and snarled back. Yuri and Yura were confused. Instead of calming down, they seemed even angrier than before from Yuri's words. Gah! Yuri turned around and she couldn't believe her eyes when she saw Fujika's clutching a bleeding wound on his side. Yahiko swiped away blood from his blade. Komachi received a punch to the gut from Dan. He then swirled his body and slipped her off her feet. Komachi attempted to correct herself by adding chakra to her hands, but the young blonde only saw Dan hold up a hand sign. Reika no Jutsu, spirit transformation technique, Dan called. Everyone watched his body drop to the ground. Komachi fell to the ground as well, but she slowly began to stand up. The former Root Anbu turned around and faced everyone. She gripped her sword and Yuri felt cold dread fill her body, mind, and heart when Komachi pointed the blade at her own throat. Komachi-san. What are you doing? Yura hollered. Fujika's grunted and fell to his knees with a curse. No, his master would never forgive himself if this happened. Guren punched Gari in the face and raced over to Komachi, but Kimimaro quickly cut her off. Stop, Yuri said. Her body huffed. Memories of Shizune and Ebisu's bodies on the ground in front of her filled her mind. No, Naruto couldn't do this. Yuri watched Komachi's hands tremble as the tipped blade shed a drop of blood from her throat. Stop please, Yuri said again as she balled her fists. Everyone turned to Naruto and they watched him raise a hand. He then brought it down. Komachi brought her blade back. I said stop it. Yuri hollered with a mighty cry as her red hair swiftly changed silver. Her body was wrapped in a white cloak that she recalled so much. Everyone groaned as they covered their eyes. Naruto squinted his own for a moment as Yuri took a deep breath of air. She screamed into the sky as the ground beneath her feet cracked into pieces. Yura took a step back in awe of her younger sibling. Soon, Komachi found herself flipped upside down. The silver-haired Uzumaki slammed Komachi into the ground and kicked the blade away. Get out of her. Get out of her right now, damn it. I said get out. Yuri shouted angrily. Everyone then began to see a red cloak of chakra begin to cover her silver-white cloak. Yuri's teeth sharpened and her claws largened. Her hands became overcome with a powerful glow. She stepped her hands into Komachi's body. No one could utter a sound when she forcefully pulled out Dan's spirit from Komachi's soul. She then threw him into his own body. Her cousin laid on the ground, unconscious. Dan stood to his feet, a scowl on his face. Yuri stepped in front of everyone. I don't know who you are or why you've taken over my Nisan, but you won't live to regret it. Yuri exploded. Her chakra blasted into the sky and a deep screech escalated from Naruto's lips. His summons turned to him for a moment as Yuri continued to expose her anger and frustration. Dan released a powerful roar which most could not have taken for his voice. He was ready to dash at Yuri, but an unheard order stopped him. He turned around and he noticed Naruto stand to his pale blue-haired young man stepped back as did the others. Fujika's roughly panted as he gripped his blade. Guren collected she and Fuka pulled Komachi away to safety. Yuri stared at Naruto as the once blonde, now raven-haired young Hinokan member stood in front her, his blade in hand. Their eyes glared at each other. Naruto then pointed his sword at her. Yuri took a taijutsu stance. Nisan, Yuri thought sadly. This wasn't her brother. For the family that she had, she couldn't let this thing have her brother or them. Naruto dashed forward and Yuri did the same. With a slash of his blade, Naruto screamed. Yuri blocked his sword strike and swung her leg. The male Jinchuriki quickly blocked her kick and forced her off. Yuri took a couple of steps back in surprise, but she didn't let it hold her back for long. She sucked in her legs and the ground exploded in a mass of spiritual power before she launched herself forward. She brought her fist back. Naruto glanced up at her. He placed his foot up and it stopped her punch. Naruto used her strength to push himself into the air. He brought his blade back. Yuri-sama, be ready. That's one of Shikyo-sama's best techniques. Fujika's called out, still injured. Yuri didn't have to be told twice. She loved her brother. The redhead knew him very well. Naruto swung his blade as an arc of Honsho exploded from each swipe. Yuri stepped to the side and backpedaled away from each one. She landed on the ground and jumped back in time for an arc to slice a corner of the tip of her hair. Yuri panted for a moment, but when she looked up Naruto was already gone. He quickly materialized behind her. Yuri, behind you. Yura called. Yuri gasped, but Naruto gave a growl to Yura. He dashed towards her. Yura widened her eyes as Naruto pointed his ferocious energy at her. She could see it in his eyes. He would strike her down without remorse for his actions. As his blade reached her face, a hand grabbed the sword and redirected it to the house. Yuri, Yura, Fujika's, and the rest of the Uzumaki clan could hardly believe their eyes when half the house ruptured in a ground-shattering explosion. Planks of wood flopped through the air. Yura fell back and Yuri panted as blood dripped from her hand. Naruto turned back to her, hatred swelled in his heart at her intervention. Blood must be summoned and had for this. Ni-chan, I know you're in there. Fight it. You're better than this. I know you're not so weak that you would willingly be controlled. Yuri called to himself. Everyone seemed surprised when Naruto gave a grunt of pain. He touched his mask and snarled. Sweat dripped from his face with everyone encouraging him. Naruto dropped to one knee. Too much noise. Stop your screaming. Stop. 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 Naruto roared a malicious amount of energy and stepped back next to his summons. His mask started to change. The open mouth slowly began to close. Naruto's blade flourished with malignant energy. Yuri quickly stood in front of everyone. Yet, a drop of sweat poured from her visage. Her lover's anger was legendary. It seemed like nothing would stop him. Uzumaki Fukushu. Shinigami, Naruto stopped. Everyone tensed up, but they saw the sky clear up. All traces of evil energy vanished away. One by one, Naruto's summons started to vanish back into his hand. A crack appeared on his mask, then another, and another. His mask crumbled into pieces revealing his face. Everyone saw the tears in his eyes before he fell to the ground unconscious. Yuri dropped to her knees with a hard pant, her aura dissipating. Naruto dropped his blade to the ground. Soon everyone noticed the reason for his state. Behind him, the Shinigami appeared. If the god's visage could change then it would have expressed utter sadness. Yuri raced to Naruto and held him in her arms. Everyone released a breath and dropped to the ground, thankful to be safe for a little while. The Shinigami stared at the remaining remnants of Naruto's mask. His eyes narrowed. Uzumaki Aikizoku, this is my fault. I humbly beg your forgiveness for this transgression, the god of death apologized. Everyone looked at him in confusion. Meanwhile, Yuri continued to gently soothe Naruto even as everyone saw his tears stain the ground. (3721). Chapter 58. Quote, just because a door appears closed it does not mean that it is locked, nor that it will not open with the right heart, call or touch, by Rashid Oganlaru. Kushina opened her eyes. The smell of disinfectants led her to believe that she was in the hospital. The bright lights made her squint and she slowly tried to ease herself to an upright position. She didn't remember what had happened to her. Everything seemed to be flying at her in a myriad of pain and flashing lights. Once she tried to move, she found her body screaming at her with an intense fiery sensation that kept her pinned down. What happened? Kushina wondered until she heard her room door open. A gasp made her turn her head. She noticed Yukimaru, Burin, and she come through the door. Kushina-san, you're awake. The young boy claimed. She saw him walk to the side of her bed and place some flowers in a vase for her. She wasn't sure what to make of their presence, but family was always welcome regardless. Meanwhile, Burin and she closed the door and surrounded her. Neither needed to guess what she was thinking. Her eyes told them enough. You fainted at the Hyuga residence. Hiyashi-sama personally escorted you to the hospital. You've been asleep for at least a week, she said. He held up her head gently to give her water. Kushina gratefully accepted the gesture. As the water slid down her throat, she began to remember. She remembered speaking with Hiyashi Hyuga, and then came a surge of spiritual pressure from within her body. As the valve which kept Naruto's power in check, allowing it to grow with his current human body, she felt like her entire had almost been breaking. It was almost as if so much power had grown within Naruto that her body was utterly incapable of handling all of it. Speaking of him, where was her son? Where is Naruto? Kushina asked. It had not been spoken of, but due to her connection to him, both by the powers of the Shinigami and their Uzumaki ritual of engagement, she had been able to sense him fairly well, even over 20 miles away. Now, she felt like she couldn't even sense him at all. That worried her a great deal. The redhead did not like the mood in the room. It was as if dread had touched their faces and filled their spirits. Burin was the one to speak. Kushina, by order of the Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto has been deemed a hazard to the stability of Konoha. He was escorted into the Konoha Strict Correctional Facility about 5 days ago until there has been word of what to do with him, Guren replied. Crack. The wall behind Kushina fractured itself as her body began to glow with righteous white fire. Her eyes burned with anger. So intense was her fury that the glass of her window cracked as well. It did not take the windows long to buckle between the overwhelming pressure. The window sill snapped in two, making Yukimaru scream as the glass exploded over his body. Guren quickly took the young boy away while she covered the rest of his body from the flying pieces of broken glass. The three was the way her hair swayed in the air like a malevolent, yet holy beast. Whatever pain, whatever burning sensation, whatever aching feeling her body was experiencing, Kushina did not care. She found the strength to grab the sheets and pull them off her body. Kushina-san, you shouldn't be out of bed, she claimed worriedly. As soon as Kushina felt her feet touch the floor, she wobbled for a moment, her body unsteady from her days in the hospital. Tsunade, this better be some kind of sick joke, Databane. My son better be alright or I'll remove your damn head from your shoulders. Kushina inwardly threatened. She grabbed the handle of the door and turned around. Take me home. Tsunade and this damn village have screwed my family over for the last time, she claimed. Kushina, wait, you have to listen. I think the Hokage might have a point. Just look outside, Guren claimed. Oh, Kushina was going to look outside, but it wasn't going to be from a window. It was going to be through her own eyes outside of the hospital. To even hear what her blue-haired family member had said left a sour taste in her mouth. The three quickly picked up their things and ran after her. They were just in time to see Kushina shove her doctor into the wall. Touch me again, and I'll make sure your hands don't operate on anyone again, she roared with steel in her voice. Nurses, doctors, and patients moved out of the woman's way as her very aura shattered the glass windows and pierced the tiled floors. Tsunade Senju, Kushina could forgive a lot of things. Kushina had forgiven a lot of things. But you would rue the day you messed with her son. Kushina hadn't even fully forgiven Tsunade for the previous excuses. This was most definitely not helping. If you thought that just because you were the Hokage, the leader of the village that Minato had once been the leader of, she would go easy on you, then you damn sure had another thing coming. The mature redhead exited the hospital and, for the moment, she was shocked by how much destruction the village had sustained. She could also feel the pressure in the air. Her son had done this. She didn't know how, and she didn't know why, but her son had done this. Yet, she knew it was more than that. Something had happened to him. Something had happened to them both. Naruto's mother knew this when she saw the massive scar in the ground which had been torn through the entire village from endpoint to endpoint. Kushina was very worried. Not about the village per se, but about her son. If he had done this, then what was happening to him? Kushina, wait. You can't leave. You could still be hurt. If Naruto was sent there, then the only person who can get him out is the Hokage. Not even the Hinoken group has that kind of authority. Besides, you can't threaten the Hokage. Guren called out. Kushina stopped for a moment. It was a moment that the three Uzumaki members wished she hadn't, because as soon as she did, the ground splintered beneath her feet. Watch me, Kushina replied, her voice much darker than either of the three had heard of her before. Naruto panted as he ran and ran. How long had he been running? He wasn't sure. He never seemed to get tired, but he never seemed to make any progress either. It was dark wherever he was. Yet, he kept running and running. He didn't know why. Was he running to save someone? Was he running to get away? He knew the answer to neither question. He just kept running. Why do you run, child of death? Do you fear me that much? I opened your eyes to the glory which awaits you. Merge with me and become a god amongst gods. You despise him, right? Jashin. We could end him, destroy all which he holds dear. What holds you back? What binds you down? A voice, loud as thunder and sharp as steel, spoke to him. Suddenly, Naruto felt very hot. He had been running for so long, yet this was the first time he actually remembered sweating. His open-toed sandals burned like the floor he ran on was covered in hot magma. The pain fired through his senses, but he kept running. He could hear people screaming. The flames which danced around him burned all that he could see. Clearer and clearer the darkness seemed to get, but even now Naruto wished it had stayed dark. He would not need to see the gruesome display of citizens running through the streets, stepping over each other in panic. He would not need to see swarms of the deceased cutting through bodies of mortal flesh like it was naught but paper. Stop it, Naruto thought. He wanted to act, but force of immeasurable weight stopped him. He was only allowed to watch as houses were razed to the ground, children, parents, and adults were slaughtered. A kingdom of burning ash and sulfur filled the skies. Is this what holds you back from our merger? This village? Why let them tie you down? They will only betray you in the end, as will all who bear mortal flesh. I would never lie to you. Have you forgotten that they hid your parents from you? Have you forgotten how much they despised you? Have you forgotten how much they hurt you? The voice would not stop. Naruto tried to focus his power as much as he could, but his seal burned with even more intensity than the surrounding heat had. He choked for air while he clutched his arm. Everyone was screaming, but he couldn't help. Everyone was dying, but he couldn't act. Even with the powers of the god of death at his disposal, he was unable to move through with action. Do you know why you can't move? Do you know why you can't ask? Do you know why you can't fight me? Because you know I'm right. What you see is what you truly desire. What you see is retribution. We can guide their souls to the afterlife and torment them for the rest of their miserable existences. See, even your family agrees with me. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw a man stood atop the Hokage tower. Beside him rested the many members of the Uzumaki clan that Naruto had so readily called his family. It was utterly impossible for him to mistake the statue of his mother. She stared down upon Konoha with an unholy gaze. It's not enough, Kushina said. It will never be enough for these fuckers. We should finish off the rest of them. Tayuya replied. There was not a single one of them that thought otherwise, and that terrified Naruto more than it should have. All in due time, stupid daughter of mine. Besides, we already have the first key. We just need the other 4. Isn't that right, Godime-sama? Riza asked. She and the others turned around to see Tsunade, the Hokage of Konoha, bound head to toe in dense, constricting chains which rendered her strength a complete non-factor. All of this. You would do all of this just because I had Konoha's best interests in mind. The exile was only temporary. It was never meant to come to this. Kushina, this the home that grandfather and Midobachan fought to protect. You would dishonor both their wishes for this? Tsunade asked. Kushina chuckled and flipped some of her hair to the side. You know what they say, Tsunade, one man's destiny is another's man's ruin. This has nothing to do with Midobachan. You're just in the way. I told you that you would rue the day you messed with my son again, the redhead swordswoman replied. Kushina, I care about Naruto too, but the safety of the village came first. One person's life does not equal the tens of thousands of others. Minato would never. Tsunade never managed to finish her statement before a blast of light exploded from Kushina's palms, utterly obliterating the Godime Hokage from the top of the Hokage mansion. Now no one will ever speak that name to me again. Is that right, Sochi? Kushina asked, staring up into the sky. The others of the Uzumaki clan stared with her. Naruto did not wish to look up as well, but he did. Once he did, the image that he saw would be burned into his head for many sleepless nights. He saw himself floating in the air above the burning village. With white fire eyes that carry the souls of eons of the dead, he held out his hand. Soon that too was covered as well. That's right, Ka-chan. The age of mortals is over. Now is the age, what I say it is. Naruto started at himself, having finished those words. They sounded dark, twisted, and disturbed. Yet, the power he was feeling was very much like his own at the moment. Then, Naruto noticed the empowered form of himself stare directly at him. The Uzumaki clan members stared at the young blonde as well. So merge with me and fulfill destiny. The Naruto in the sky shouted as he turned his hand towards the one on the ground. He then fired with all his strength. A blast of pure white energy exploded from his hands and engulfed Naruto below. It felt hot. It felt hotter than anything he had ever felt previously. Though, no matter how hot it felt, he couldn't scream out. His lips were sealed shut and he could only watch in horror as his very body faded away into nothingness. Was he dying? Ni-chan. Ni-chan. Wake up. Naruto ni. Naruto's eyes shot open and he released a heavy breath he had been holding. His eyes had him looking up at a dark stone ceiling. To his side rested Yuri. A worried expression was upon her face. She touched his face and he saw her hand covered in his sweat. Yuri? Naruto asked. She quickly nodded and walked over to a pail of water. When she walked over to it, Naruto quickly noticed he was not in his family's medical area. Usually, medical areas didn't have iron bars at the entrance. He tried to move, but his body forbade him from doing so. That same burning sensation from earlier was currently happening. I'm glad you're finally awake. You were asleep for a really long time, a week I think. You were screaming, no, 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 over and over, and you had a high fever, Yuri said. At these words, Naruto felt like he was still dreaming. He had been asleep for a week. What had caused him to nearly collapse for a week? Better yet, where was he now? He didn't remember a whole lot. Everything was very hazy. He had just finished showing Yuri the form that had been granted to him by the Shin. After that, everything was blank. Yuri took the wet cloth and wiped the sweat from Naruto's face. Yuri, where are we? Naruto asked. The young redhead shivered at his question. It was not something that Naruto missed. As for herself, Yuri knew there was no point in trying to be funny. It was a very serious situation and, no matter how she felt, it had to be addressed. You've been arrested by Konoha and detained in the Konoha Strict Correctional Facility. You've been detained because you were deemed a threat to the village's security. I tried to explain that it wasn't your fault, but no one would listen to me. They came while you were unconscious on my lap. They tried to take you, but I wasn't going to let you be taken alone for something I know wasn't your fault. In the end, they took me with you. I've been feeding you for the week while we've been here, she replied. Naruto's mouth felt dry. Him, a threat to Konoha security? No, that was impossible. It had to be some kind of sick joke that he wasn't in on. But, no joke would have him behind bars. He stared at Yuri. She wasn't lying to him. She continued to wash his face as he tried to process these words. His breathing quickened. Ni-chan. Yuri spoke. Why does the Hokage allow that boy around the village? Lord Hokage should really have more consideration for the people. He's going to turn on us one day. Here, take the mask. Now get out. Go away. Stay away from that boy. He's dangerous. You should never have been born. Someone as worthless as you could never become Hokage. You're a threat. Go away. Disappear. Merge with me, and end this age of mortals. We are not the threat. They are. To the newly formed earth which shall be cleansed through fire and brimstone. Merge with me. Ni-chan. Yuri shouted, which made Naruto's breathing return. He stared at her, but he then exhaled. He still couldn't move, therefore he couldn't turn away from her like he wanted to. This sounded like a bad dream. Yuri, what did I do? He asked, his voice rather soft. It was that softness that truly made Yuri not want to tell him. She didn't know what she was supposed to say. He looked like he was in greater distress and Yuri never wanted her brother to be in pain. It wasn't doing good for her either. This constant worry for him. She wished she could kiss him and make him feel better, but would that even have the effect? Thankfully or not, Yuri didn't have the time to answer. Instead, there came a Jonin operative. Uzumaki Naruto. Good, you're awake. Come with me. You too, Uzumaki Yuri, he said, unlocking the door. He then stepped inside, but as soon as he did he was overcome by a massive amount of spiritual pressure. He then noticed Yuri glaring at him. I hope you go to the eye doctor soon because, in case you haven't noticed, Ni-chan is too hurt to move. Either get him some help or get your people down here and tell him. Yuri demanded. Despite the pressure, the Jonin sent a harsh glare towards her. Remember your place, Genin. I can have you charged with obstruction of authority if you talk back to me like that again, he remarked. It was then that he heard the walls of Naruto's cell crack and crumble. He spared a glance to the wall. It was close to breaking. He then turned back to see Naruto, his gaze full of steel, and his fists clenched. Though bedridden, the blonde was not so helpless that he couldn't make the man regret talking to his cousin as he had. The man cleared his throat. Well, it doesn't matter. You coming with me was merely a formality, but we can save that for later. Anyway, Uzumaki Naruto, effectively immediately, by decree of the Council of Konoha, you are hereby stripped of your shinobi rank and Hitai 8. For endangerment to the citizens of Konoha you are hereby exiled from the village for 6 to 7 months. Konoha outposts in other nations are prohibited as well. Your sword and a backpack with standard shinobi supplies is waiting for you as soon as you can move, he read. Silence surrounded the cell. Like the tightening coil of a long snake around their throats, Yuri and Naruto were left speechless. It must have only been a few seconds, but those seconds must have felt like hours. The pressure, the weight of those words was enough to make one person break. What? You're exiling Ni-chan. But it wasn't his fault. I even wrote a report describing what happened. I hate writing reports. Have you all lost your damn minds? Something was manipulating him. Yuri exclaimed with heat in her voice. Her teeth gnashed against each other. She could feel something in the back of her mind snapping. Calm down, you're getting too angry, Sandy spoke. Yet, he could feel the surge of his power rising through Yuri's body. The Biju could feel his host slipping away. Her anger was rising higher and higher. You, ungrateful, self-serving, self-righteous, undeserving bastards. Ni-chan has saved all of you countless times. Yuri snarled with her fingers clenched. You would do well to remember that you're speaking against an order from your Hokage, Genin. His exile isn't permanent. He is saving the lives of many Konoha citizens by removing his presence from the village, or did you not tell him that he attacked the Uzumaki clan and nearly killed Uzumaki Komachi while under this manipulation? The Jonin asked. Naruto widened his eyes in disbelief. He did what? He nearly killed Komachi. A shiver ran through his spine. No, he couldn't have. He would never. This wasn't a bad dream. This was a nightmare. His body felt cold. His chest felt tight. He couldn't breathe. And my future dream is to become the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. We're all here now, Yura said, getting everyone to nod in agreement with her. That's right, we also have Uzushiogakure. We have enough members to be an official clan. But whether we're a clan or not, we're Uzumaki, right? Gurren asked and everyone nodded, even she and Komachi. That's right. We're fucking Uzumaki. No one can mess with us. Chiyuya exclaimed. Everyone nodded. Gurren kissed Yukimaru's forehead. It doesn't matter if you're full-blooded, half-blooded, or even related to us. Yukimaru, you're an Uzumaki just like us, Gurren said, and Yukimaru shook his head happily. Nicely said, Gurren, to Yuya. We're all here and it doesn't matter how. However, I have to say, Riza said as she stood before her nephew. She grabbed Naruto into a hug, getting the others to smile. Sorry you were alone. Sorry you had so many sleepless nights. We're not going anywhere this time, she said. Naruto just nodded. I know you aren't. 'Cause I'm going to protect us all, Naruto returned. Yuri's silence gave the Jonin as much as he needed. Unless you can prove this manipulator actually exists and that they were the one behind Uzumaki Naruto's rampage, then all you report has done was add what you assumed happened. Evidence is all that matters. I suggest you learn that quickly. As for you, Uzumaki Naruto, I'll bring the prison doctor and they will give you an overall checkup. As soon as you are cleared to leave, then you will be escorted out. I suggest you not toy with the order, the Jonin said. He quickly turned around and left, but not before locking the cell doors. Yuri turned to face Naruto. Ni-chan, don't listen to him. I know I don't have proof, but I know you weren't the one who. Yuri turned around and she noticed the blank stare on the blonde's face. His entire body seemed unresponsive, as if he had been forcibly disconnected from the world around him. Yet, the shiver in his arms was apparent. Yuri did not wish to tell him, but within her heart, the smallest seed of contempt had grown towards Konoha. She knelt at his side and hugged him. If they exile you, Ni-chan, then they better exile me too. Urane and I will never leave you. I love you, Ni-chan. No matter what anyone says. You'll never be a monster to me, Yuri said. She held him as tight as she could. She then was rewarded by him leaning his head on her shoulder. Her fingers raked through his hair. Fine, Konoha, if you didn't want her Ni-chan, then she would take him. All of him. I have made my decision, Yura. Until this matter can be resolved, and Naruto can properly show me that he's under control of his powers, he won't be allowed back inside Konoha's walls. I can only assume that 6 months is a good time for that, Tsunade replied. If that's the case, then with all due respect, Tsunade-sama, you're an absolute idiot. Yura replied, which made the Hokage narrow her eyes. For the normally most reserved member of the Uzumaki clan to speak out like this was rather interesting, if very disrespectful. However, Yura didn't give the busty Hokage the chance to reprimand her. How is exiling Ni-sama going to prove to you that he can control his powers? Better yet, why should he have to prove anything to you? It feels like all his life he's been doing nothing but proving himself to this village over and over and over again. When will all of you realize that if you actually helped him instead of isolating him like some dangerous animal, then he would give you what you wanted so much? Yura asked vehemently. Tsunade stood up and opened her window. Look outside at the village, Yura. It's nearly destroyed. Reports of festering spirits come to me almost daily. With Hanako and Hizashi Hyuga's sudden appearances in combination with Naruto's mysterious summoning beast, people are asking questions and many are assuming he's responsible. This is as much for the village as it is for him, the blonde Hokage explained. As much for the village as it is for him. It's never been about him. Not once has it ever been about him. It's always about you and these people who constantly take advantage of him. Oni-sama always told me that Konoha people valued everyone. Everyone was treated like brothers and sisters here. He always had nothing but good things to say. Well, I don't know of any family that exiles their family members. Yura responded back. Yura, I have been accommodating of your attitude, but do not forget that I am your Hokage. You will give me the respect I deserve. I know this will be hard for Naruto, but this is for the best. I'm sure of it. Tsunade claimed back. Yura's frown deepened. Oh, this was for the best. This was for the best. Then why wouldn't Tsunade tell him that she was basically destroying his dream? If it's for the best, then tell me, can a former exiled shinobi become the leader of a village? Yura asked. The blonde medic nin visibly shivered. She then looked away from the Uzumaki female, a look of sadness on her face. Her fingers clenched against each other as she felt the weight of Yura's words. Part of being an adult is giving up the things we want the most, even our dreams, Tsunade replied. Yura widened her eyes. Shock, rage, disgust, all of these emotions filled her body. She then grabbed her Hitai. You people disgust me. I never told Oni-sama this, but I had reservations about Yuri and I coming to Konoha. It was always just the two of us, but Ni-sama was the guiding light in our lives. If he was with us, then change wouldn't be so scary. I came to love him so much. I do love him very much. Maybe I love him too much. I love him so much that what you and the rest of the cowards in this village doesn't concern me. Yura said. In one fluid motion, which surprised Tsunade, Yura Uzumaki tore off her Konoha headband and threw it on the ground. If you exile Oni-sama, then I resign as a shinobi of Konoha. I'm going with him. Wherever he's going, I'm going, and none of you can stop me. Yura replied. She turned around before Tsunade could give a response. The eldest sister of the two redhead Uzumaki opened the door and was a tad surprised to see Kushina standing there with Gurren and she. Tsunade did not want to admit it, but a flash of fear flew through her body when the former redhead looked at her. Kushina's once red hair was glowing with white-hot flames. No doubt her powers were in full blossom. She would look very beautiful if she wasn't so terrifying. Gurren, take Yura home. I believe she's said her piece, Kushina said. Neither sought to refute her. They collected Yura and left the room while Kushina stepped inside. She then closed the door. Tsunade took a calming breath. I'm glad Urawa. The Hokage didn't get to finish her sentence before she noticed her mirrors crack. A frown marred her face until she turned back to Kushina. This is the third time, Tsunade. Kushina said, her voice reverberating through the room. Though unnerved, Tsunade rose an eyebrow in confusion. This is the third time that you in this village have messed with my son. 1. Sarutobi allowed his Jinchuriki status to slip into the masses, which gave my son some of the most terrible years of his life. 2. Neither you nor Jiraiya honored our wishes to keep check of him. That I understand, perhaps the both of you did have urgent matters. Fine, but this is the third. Damn time. You imprison my son, exile him, destroy his dream in one single action. I truly applaud you, Tsunade. You've never made me want to kill you this badly, Databane. Kushina remarked. Instantly 4 Anbu surrounded her, but Kushina didn't pay them much of a concern. Her entire attention was focused on the Hokage in front of her. Luckily for you, Yura practically spoke for me and what I was going to say, but I'll leave you with this. I don't know what good you think you're doing, but you have done it for the last time. Naruto will be taking up his exile with the Hinokan group. If you know what's good for you and the rest of this village, you'll allow that. But I'm watching you, Tsunade Senju. I warn you. I'll make you rue the day you came back to Konoha to take office here. Kushina finished. Without another word, she turned around and walked out of the room. Tsunade released a breath and fell back into her chair. The Hokage closed her eyes and released a sigh. I want the Uzumaki clan monitored from now on. I don't want to think it would happen with Mito Bachan's family, but they might become a threat, Tsunade said. One of the Anbu quickly saluted her and stormed off to ready the appropriate personnel. Naruto stared down at a single backpack and his sword on a table. It was as the Jonin said, only a backpack containing the essentials for shinobi and his sword were all that were awarded to him during this time. The blonde exhaled. When the doctor came, he had given the okay that Naruto could move. Sometimes, Naruto had to curse his healing factor, but that wasn't Kurama's fault. It had saved him many times, and it did at that point. It was just a bit unfortunate. So, Naruto was moved out of the cell with Yuri and, here they were. Uzumaki Naruto, hurry up and collect your things. Any longer and you run the risk of longer imprisonment. A guard called. This was actually happening. He, Uzumaki Naruto, was being exiled from his home. He couldn't even say goodbye to his family, his mother, or his friends. Shut up. He's still feeling stiff. Just give him a few more minutes. Yuri called back angrily. Even though it wasn't right, her response did make Naruto smile. Kami, he truly loved her sometimes. Thanks Yuri-chan, Naruto replied. He found his head turned and pulled into a sweet kiss courtesy of the young Uzumaki. She stared into his eyes and smiled. I don't care what happens to me Ni-chan, but I'm not letting you go alone. If I know everyone else back at home, they feel the same way. She replied. Naruto gave her a smile as well. It probably wasn't his best, but he hoped she felt its meaning. Finally, both were escorted out of the Konoha Correctional Facility. It took about an extra hour to get from the center of the facility, which turned out to be at the center of a volcanic area. Once this area of fire and rock turned into lush green trees, they were both left alone at the center of the room. Too bad I couldn't get any of my own supplies, Yuri said. She took off her Konoha headband and placed it in her pocket. Listen Yuri-chan, maybe it would be better if you finish that sentence, Ni-chan, and I'll give you the biggest lump that your pants never could. I'm staying with you and that's final, she replied, a cheeky smile on her face. Despite himself, Naruto didn't stop the next smile that came on his face, even with a slight grimace. Yuri was pretty scary herself when she had to be. With a heavy heart, confused mind, and young redhead lover, Naruto turned away from the road which would lead to Konoha and walked in the opposite direction with Yuri. The sun rested in the sky over them, lighting the path as they walked. (3721). Chapter 59. After her brief talk with Tsunade, Kushina arrived back at the Uzumaki compound. Clearly those of the village had given her a wide berth due to her mood. She had not been in the greatest state of mind to be speaking with anyone. Yet, when she came home she was surprised to see Yura sealing some of her clothes into a scroll. You resigned as a Konoha shinobi. Yura-san, I know you're upset, but you can't resign this early. Shinobi resignation is a very serious matter. It's not like retirement. You don't just leave, then come back when you want to. If you resign you won't be able to return to the Corps for at least 6 to 8 years. You could be ruining your career as a kunoichi forever, Shizune attempted to explain in a frantic manner. Those of the Uzumaki household still around watched her continue to move. So we're just supposed to let it go that this shithead council just kicked out one of the core members of our family just because they got a little scare. Why the hell aren't all of us going after him right now? Tuyuya asked. Surprisingly, Komachi was the one who answered. It would show clear, open hostility between our clan and Konoha if we decided to remove ourselves from under the Konoha village. We are still in the village. A revival of a nigh-extinct clan, a resurgence of a powerful shinobi practice, and 2 Jinchuriki. I can confidently say that without Kushina-san or Naruto-san we wouldn't make it very far, Komachi replied. Tuyuya growled and stared off to the side. Plus, we have to keep in mind that Konoha knows how we feel about that decision. They're going to be watching us now, especially after Yura's outburst back at the mansion, Gurren answered as well. But, 6 months without Naruto ni is too long. We're Uzumaki, we're supposed to have a strong relationship with the Senju, the forefathers of this village. The Konoha flak jacket wears the Uzumaki symbol. It feels like we're the only ones who care about it since they don't seem to. Yukimaru replied next, which brought most to his attention. He didn't like this. Yukimaru wanted his family back. He missed the days where the compound was filled with laughter and joy. This past week had been one of the most miserable that he had ever experienced. He tried to cheer himself up around Hanabi, but it was obvious that the strain was upon him. Well, I don't know about everyone else, but I joined this village because of Naruto and my family. I didn't come here because I had a particular love for the Konoha people, nor the will of fire that so many preach about. I think we know my stance on the matter. Whatever happened, it wasn't Naruto's fault. Fuka then spoke. She took a calming breath and exhaled. I think we're all making too many hasty decisions here. Even if, and that's a large if, we did somehow leave the village, where would we go? Uzushiogakure isn't a shinobi village. Most of the people we've allowed to inhabit it are fishermen, sailors, merchants, and other casual laborers. What I mean to say is, what is to stop Konoha from launching an assault on us if we did leave? She asked. No one was able to speak for the moment. Kushina and Riza shared a glance. They both knew the answer to that question, but that was beside the point at the moment. Enough. No more fighting. Listen, we're all upset. Very rightfully so, but we're not going to lose our heads here, Databane. Yura, Kushina began, but the young redhead quickly spoke faster. I'm going, Kushina-san. Nothing anyone can say will change my mind. After everything Nisama's been through, for them to just throw him out like garbage is unacceptable. Well, I'm going to be one of those to show him that no matter what anyone else thinks of him, he'll always be welcome to me, she replied. She then finished packing her clothes and made for the door. Do you even know where he is? Komachi asked. Yura stopped at the door. She then turned around and, despite the current mood of everyone, rubbed the back of her head. Yes, she asked, which forced a smile on everyone's lips. Even Kushina couldn't stay as sour as she wanted to despite how miserable the current situation felt. It seemed that time allowed the Uzumaki clan this brief moment of happiness before the world began to come to them with more of its problems. Once the laughter stopped, Kushina exhaled. As I was saying, since Yura has, effectively resigned as a Konoha shinobi, then I will be escorting her out of the village. Once we've left, we'll start finding my son. He'll reside in the land of eddies for however long this exile is for, Kushina spoke. Is that a good idea, Kushina-san? You just left the hospital about an hour ago. You're still hurt. To be honest, I don't even know how you're standing right now, she answered back to her. Kushina almost wished her fellow Uzumaki hadn't reminded her of the pain. As soon as her anger, and by extension her power, had dispelled, it felt like the searing pain which had kept her body pinned to that hospital bed had returned. Yet, she couldn't afford to play the helpless patient right now. I'll be fine, Databane. I'm a lot tougher than I look. Besides, I'll have the Uzushiogakure doctors look me over too before I do anything drastic, Kushina replied. That didn't set Shi with a much better mood, but he had a feeling that it would be the only one that he would get. It also seemed that Kushina wasn't in the mood to discuss this further, so he dropped the issue. Once this was done, everyone was rather intrigued to see Komachi pulled up a bag she had been hiding. Ah, I would like to go as well. I'm worried about Naruto. I have no doubt they told him what had happened. I won't allow him to blame himself for it. If there is something else happening here, then he will need to know about it, Komachi answered. Kushina swiftly agreed. Very well, I'll leave the Uzumaki compound to Riza and Gurren while we're gone. For the meantime, everyone tread carefully. Things between Konoha and us are more than a little tense. It's obvious we're not in each other's good graces anymore. So everyone keep a low profile until this matter calms down, she said. Once everyone agreed, they were quick to bid their farewells to Kushina, Komachi and Yura. The three Uzumaki ladies, with no time to lose, left the village as soon as possible. Kushina advised them both to stick close to her because she hoped to finish this quickly. The three dashed off through the trees, leaving Konoha behind them. Don't worry, Sochi. I'm coming. Kushina exclaimed, the sound of her footsteps against the tree branches in her ears as she ran. So Ni-chan, any idea where we're going, or are we doing like the novels and just going where the wind takes us? Yuri asked, a cheeky grin on her face. Despite his current mood, Naruto couldn't help sharing in her enthusiasm. Of course he still didn't want this to happen, but this wasn't a bad start. Your guess is as good as mine, Yuri-chan. I didn't think I'd have to even answer that question, Naruto replied. A thought did pass his mind to go to the land of eddies, but given what he had apparently been accused of doing to his own family and the village, that idea wasn't so hot to him at the moment. Never mind that because of him, Yuri had actually ruined her chances of going to the Chunin exams. It didn't make him happy, but his lover was a headstrong woman. She was just like his mother. Or perhaps it was better to say she was just like most Uzumaki women. Yuri wasn't stupid. She knew that if Naruto wanted he could return back to the land of their clan, but he was averting the problem, but what could she say? She couldn't possibly understand what he was thinking. Suddenly, the air felt very cold. The rise in spiritual pressure had both Uzumaki raise their heads. Before them stood the menacing, and powerful, gaze of the shinigami. Honestly, no matter how many times Yuri bore her gaze upon the god of death, he was still fearsome. Then again, who could handle the pressure of gods? Oh, hey, Shin. So much for the almighty summoner of one of the most powerful beings in the world, Datbeo, Naruto said. True, it felt a little bit out of character for the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, but it wasn't like he could hide anything from the god anyway, so what was the point? Yuri, however, had something else in mind. Wait a minute. When Ni-chan fainted from our attack you said it was your fault. What did you do to Ni-chan? Yuri asked angrily. Of course she was angry, and her emotions were in control of her body. Her mind had not yet caught up to the fact that she had disrespected one of the most powerful forces within the spiritual plane. All that currently mattered was her brother's life had crumbled to pieces and, somehow, the Shinigami was responsible for it. That alone was enough to make her irrational. As for Naruto, he was rather surprised to hear the accusation that Yuri claimed, but even more than this, he was surprised that the god of death did nothing to refute her statement. The way he was staring at his summoner, it was almost as if Yuri didn't even exist. He then closed his eyes. Uzumaki Naruto, do not be afraid to return back to your homeland. Go there and meet with your priestess and your family at the base of the tallest mountain. Once there, you will know where to go. I will wait for you there, he claimed. Before Naruto or Yuri could even question him on why he was asking this or why he couldn't explain it where they were, the Shinigami faded away and the feeling of pressure had been gone. This left the two Uzumaki alone once more. I hate it when he does that, Yuri claimed. Naruto had no particular response to her statement. He had been with Shin for about 2 years now and he was no closer to understanding the god than when he had first met him. Naruto exhaled. He was really tired, and that was coming from him, the guy who had energy in spades. At least we have a destination in mind now, Datbeo. Naruto exclaimed. He could tell with the way that Yuri glared at him that she did not appreciate his humor. Yet, the redhead found herself getting to her feet and dusting off her pants. Naruto then stood to his feet as well. He was ready to depart and make a fast travel to the land of eddies, but Yuri was quick to stop him. Nei Ni-chan, isn't that Ayame Nei and Tsukioji? She asked. The blonde glanced back to the road and stilled when he saw his favorite proprietors of the Ichiraku ramen industry making their way through the dirt roads along with a local merchant caravan. But where are they going? She then asked. Now that was a question that Naruto didn't know, but he was going to find out. Ayame Nei, Tsukoji. Yuri yelled, which halted the caravan. The father and daughter duo turned to their left. They watched the two Uzumaki drop down to the dirt road at their side. Surprise washed through their faces. Ayame jumped off the horse she had been riding. She was just in time to catch Yuri in a tight hug. Yuri-san, Naruto-kun, it's good to see you. Are you on a mission? Ayame asked. Thankfully, both Uzumaki held their nerve enough to keep the dejection from their faces. All they could manage was to offer tough smiles. Something like that. What about you? Where are you going? Naruto then asked. The same could not be said for Tsuki and Ayame. Their faces turned sorrowful, and it seemed like their hearts were heavy. Whatever they were going to say next seemed hard to get out. In time, Tsuki finally spoke. Naruto, my boy. We tried to see you at least once to give you the news, but we never found you. You see, we have decided to move our business from Konoha. It's not that Konoha isn't profitable, but there have been many, and I mean many, booming business ventures in a new rising country. We're going to take our chances there, he said. They say that when you're down, the world tries to kick you down even harder. That was how Naruto felt. It was how Yuri felt. It seemed as if the news just refused to stop weighing down on them both. This time, Naruto's smile wasn't enough to stop Ayame and Chuki from noticing the force behind it. Ha, I'm happy for you guys. You both deserve nothing but the best Datbayo. We gotta teach the whole world about the joys of ramen. Go get him, Naruto said, his fist tight in a feeling of triumph. Though it was obvious to see that he didn't really feel that way. Thanks, my boy. I hear the land of Eddies has great business around the year. We'll miss you, but we'll be around sometimes. Chuki replied. Yuri glanced at Ayame, then she turned her head to Naruto. Her eyes as wide as the sun, Yuri covered her mouth. What followed was a first spurts of laughter as the redhead Uzumaki female tried to cover her own. PFFT. I hope you succeed. Hey, you'll be sorely missed, Datbayan. Yuri replied. She turned away and pushed her head into Naruto's chest. Her body shivered with laughter. Naruto, himself, held his joy a little better. The land of Eddies, I've heard about that place. I've actually been there once or twice. I'll tell you what, if the whole caravan is going, how about I take everyone there? If not, I can personally escort you both there. I'm not in a hurry to get back to the village, Naruto explained. I've been there too. I'm not in a hurry either. Yuri opted in. Ayame and Chuki looked at the two, and then at each other. It did not have to be said that the pair collected their things, paid the caravan leader, and watched the entourage depart for greater adventures. It wasn't until they were out of sight that Ayame spoke. We will need to hurry. The next ship which departs for the land of Eddies will be leaving in 3 weeks, she said. No need to worry. We'll be getting there today, Yuri boasted. Chuki and Ayame glanced at each other before they both silently agreed. Shinobi stuff. Neither tried to wrap their minds around it. It wouldn't have done them any favors. Instead, they allowed themselves to be pulled by Yuri out of the way from the road. Naruto took a calming breath to steady himself. Of course he was nervous in using his powers, but he desperately sought to not hurt anyone here. All the months of training he had done in creating his techniques through the use of Honsho had flooded back to him. He just needed to be careful. Jikuyugami no Jutsu time-space distortion technique, Naruto called out. Within his body, he could feel the breakdown of Honsho. He could feel the searing burns of the seals upon his arm while the familiar dark purple portal exploded in front of the group, shocking both Ayame and Chuki. The former awkwardly chuckled. Naruto-kun, is this safe? She asked. To be honest, Naruto wasn't even sure of that himself. Thoughts of his nightmares entered his mind. What if his technique had somehow changed and it killed all who passed through it? He wouldn't be able to live with himself if he had caused some kind of harm to them. However, Naruto didn't have to answer. Are you kidding? Of course it's safe. It's the fastest way to get to anywhere. Our family uses it all the time. Yuri encouraged. Of course, Chuki and his daughter still had reservations, but they decided to place their trust not only in Yuri's word, but in Naruto's capabilities. The four were ready to make the step through the portal before the blonde Jinchuriki turned around. He could feel 2 chakra signatures and a spring of Honsho heading for his location. He could tell the 2 signatures were Uzumaki, and there was only one person besides him that had that type of spiritual energy. In a flash, Kushina, Yura, and Komachi dropped to the ground as well. Yura nay, Yuri called. Kushina stood to her feet along with the 2 other Uzumaki ladies. Her eyes turned to her son. To many, Naruto might have appeared fine, but to her, who knew her son in both his public and private moments, she could see how vulnerable he was, especially mentally. Within her mind, it made her curse Konoha even harder. Hey, Ka-chan. I'm glad you're alright, Komachi, Naruto said, his voice a slight crack that no one missed. The other blonde who had just arrived offered him a warm smile. She did not blame him for what occurred, but the fallout was something that did not please her either. I'm glad you're okay as well, Naruto. I heard what happened. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better, Komachi replied. A chuckle, Naruto put his head in his hands. Her protect him. He was the one who boasted that he could, and would, protect their family. This was all he had to show for it. Some clan leader. Oni-sama, please wait. No one at the compound blames you. We all love you. No matter what Konoha says, we'll always feel safe with you. Yura pleaded. Komachi and Yuri quickly agreed with her. Yet, Kushina was surprisingly silent. They watched Naruto sigh. I can't say I feel the same way, Yura-chan. I don't even know where to begin fixing this. Everything that's happened, it's only reminded me of those days when I was little. If what they said is true, then maybe I am a Thray, MMPH. Naruto was effectively cut off from his monologue by a kiss from Kushina. The taste of his mother's lips filled his senses and warmed his body. He could feel the spiritual energies which surrounded her body fill his own. Ah, Kushina-san. I was gonna do that. Yuri exclaimed, a pout on her face. Tsuki and Ayame gasped at this sight while Yura and Komachi smiled. A deep sigh, Kushina rubbed her son's cheek, releasing a soft moan from him before she pulled away. Sochi, you aren't a threat. There might have been a little hiccup at that time, but don't you dare think that, Databane. You're my son. You're my future husband. You are my family. We will find out who did this to you and why, then you'll come home with us just like always. Now, judging by your use of your technique, I take it you were taking our friends somewhere. Kushina asked. Naruto took himself out of the daze he had just been in. Wow, maybe he should get himself exiled for often. A bit of humor for a morbid circumstance, but it did make him feel better. He turned to see their shocked faces. Oh right, he had never officially announced to anyone that he was getting married, to his mother. Sakura had been one of the first only people to find out. Of course Tsuki and his daughter had to be shocked. Right, Tsuki Oji and Ayame-chan are leaving Konoha to go to the land of eddies. I was offering to take them there, Naruto replied. Kushina quickly nodded and patted both on their shoulders. She could still see the shock upon their faces. Perhaps, this would take some getting used to for them. I see. Well then, let's hope they find suitable living arrangements on the island. Don't worry, we all have faith in Sochi's abilities. It's perfectly safe. Now, let's go. Kushina encouraged as she pushed the owners of Ichiraku Ramen through the purple portal before they could protest. It did not take long for Naruto, Yuri, Yura, and Komachi to walk behind her. The portal quickly took them to the outskirts of the village. As soon as Ayame landed, she could smell the salt of the sea. She could also see the large bustlings of business below. Fishers, merchants, trade dealers, Uzushiogakure had all of them. A thriving village made just for guilds of all kinds. Pick a spot of land, and we'll quickly set up your living arrangements. There are many carpenters here willing to build anything for the right price, Kushina opted to tell them. It would be better than having them bumbling about getting into any kind of trouble. Tsuki cleared his throat. Shouldn't we speak with the leader of the village first before we make our plans? He asked. Oh, I know the leader of the village. He and I have a intimate relationship. You'll be fine, Databane, Kushina said. She then grabbed Naruto's hand and began dragging him off while the 4 remaining Uzumaki ladies traveled behind them. No worries. I'll come back and check on you guys once we're finished with our own things, Databane. I promise. Yuri yelled from afar. The group quickly took to the trees and dashed off, which left the father-daughter duo alone. An uncomfortable silence ran between them as both were unsure of what to talk about from what they had seen. His previous task finished, Naruto made his way through the home grounds of his clan's native land. Even now, he could feel the energy from the earth pouring into him due to his heritage as an Uzumaki. It was as if this land was specifically designed for his family to reside in. His eyes forward, he could see the largest mountaintop in the distance. That was where Shion had been living as of late with the rest of her people from the land of demons. It quickly occurred to him that they both had not seen a lot of each other. Now he was only going to see her because he was afraid he was becoming a potential threat, not just to Konoha but also to his own family. Ka-chan, if the rest of the team is feeling better, can you bring them to that mountaintop along with everyone else? I need everyone gathered, Naruto said. This drew attention from the 4 ladies to him. They saw him point to the area in question. This worried Kushina. Why would he need to go to the Uzumaki clan shrine? Why is that? Yura asked. Shin told me to. At this point, it's all I have to know what's going on, Naruto said. The young summoner of death began his trek to the mountaintop. Unlike his usual self, he didn't decide to begin the journey through a dash of trees. Instead, he seemed to prefer a slow pace with his hands in his pockets. Kushina frowned for a moment. Yura, go with Sochi. The rest of us will meet you there, the redhead said. The younger redhead slowly nodded and moved to catch up with her older family member. While Naruto's mother watched his happen, she, Yuri, and Komachi headed for the clan grounds a bit further inland from the village town below. She hoped it was nothing, but, ever since she kissed her son, her entire body felt a surge in righteous fire. Yet, it was unlike any power she had ever used before. It felt so warm, even the depths of her soul could feel it. As Kushina walked, she could only wonder, how would everyone else take this recent development? What do you mean Naruto's been exiled? Yugao asked. It was clear to everyone present that she was not in the greatest mood. Though not known to most of those around, Yugao did treat Naruto and the rest of the team like the family she had lost over her life. Yes, that even included Sasuke, abrasive though he might be. Even hearing Kushina, Yuri, and Komachi's explanation of what happened did not placate her mood. He was deemed a threat due to the uncontrollable nature of his power. I kept telling them that there had to be something wrong with him, but I was repeatedly ignored. Unless we can find proof that Ni-chan wasn't directly responsible for the attack, and he has new mastery over his abilities, then he's exiled for half a year, Yuri claimed. Yugao didn't want to say it, but each word from Yuri's explanation was making the former Anbu agent angrier and angrier. It had been a very long time since Hayate's death that she felt this much suppressed anger. Her team, her family, had gotten her through so much of her grief in dealing with her lost love. The pain that she felt some nights made her long to join him, but, this place, this team, this family that she protected had granted her new meaning to her life. So that also means that Naruto's been removed from the Hinokan group as well? Kakashi asked. Kushina's silence to that question was not something that Kakashi liked. Kami, if he hadn't been healing in the hospital for these weeks, then he would surely have been there to try and argue a case for his former blonde student. That still doesn't offer many leads. We've all seen what Naruto can do. What's powerful enough to possess him? Makoto asked while Sasuke helped her change the bandages of her dead eye. Ever since she had casted the Izanami ability through her Sharingan, her eyesight had been completely drained away. They can remove him from the team if they want, but he's not going anywhere. Konoha's not stupid. They know they need him. It probably just to soothe their own ego and sense of control, Sasuke remarked. It seemed a bit of a harsh view, but no one was particularly in a Konoha favorable mood right now. Seeing everyone slowly delve into silence, Kushina released a breath. The doctor has cleared you all to at least begin rehabilitation. I'm going to gather everyone else. We'll be going to the Uzumaki shrine. Apparently, the Shinigami has ordered an audience, Kushina said. Her voice carried a chill that no one liked, but none would argue with her. The team agreed. Once that was done, Kushina spent her time finding everyone else. She managed to locate Karen, Suigetsu, Itachi, Konan, Jugo, Haku, and Zabuza. Once they were gathered, she began to bring everyone together. Needless to say, but the news was passed to them as well. Surprisingly, it seemed that the one who took it the hardest was Haku. The redhead fiancé of Uzumaki Naruto stared at those gathered and began to lead them to the base of the tallest mountaintop in all of the land of Eddies. The blonde exiled ninja released a huff as he had just finished walking the rather lengthy trail. Kami, it had been a while since he had been up here. In front of him laid large concrete stairs leading up to the temple shrine. 1 foot in front of the other, he climbed the steps until he came to the face of the building. It was a very beautiful shrine. Every single color was dedicated to the Uzumaki culture. Red pillars, a luscious green shrine field, exquisite marble walls. A place for prayer and healing, so many walls surrounded it. It was its very own compound. Elegant fish swam in the pools around each structured building. Obviously the builders had done more than their money's worth. It was a very beautiful settlement. Naruto-sama, welcome to the Uzumaki shrine. Shion-sama has been expecting you, one of the shrine maidens claimed. It seemed that the priest Shion was training were all away on other affairs. The blonde followed the woman through the main halls. It wasn't long before he spotted his cousin sitting upon an altar. Her eyes stared into a burning fire. She then began to write on a piece of paper with an ink brush. "So, it only takes uncertain doom to make you visit me, Naruto?" Shion asked. The blonde winced at the accusation being presented to him. True, he hadn't come here as much as he probably should have, but there were good excuses for that. Forgive him if he couldn't think of them off the top of his head. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi exhaled. I'll try to visit more Datbeo," he said, his shoulders slumped. He watched her turn around to face him. Dressed in grand clothes of lavender and red befitting a priestess of the shrine, she walked down the lengthy steps until she was eye level with him. Only then did she flick him in the forehead. "Good. Now, I know why you're here. You need to go into the deepest part of the mountain. It's the only place that's safe," Shion said. That did not make Naruto very happy. "Safe from what?" he asked. "Yourself," she replied. A chill ran down the blonde's spine. So far, this day was not turning out like he had hoped it would. He waited for Shion to lead him, but she quickly told him that the others would be joining them shortly. It was then that Naruto remembered the Shinigami had asked for the blonde to bring his family with him. While they waited for the others to arrive, Shion decided to ask Kana, the shrine maiden who guided Naruto into the temple, to make tea for them. The priestess decided to attempt to ease her cousin's fears with talk of past times. She told him about the many accomplishments and teachings she had received as well as the visions and prophecies which she had allowed to come to pass, and ones that she herself had prevented. Apparently, there was a prophecy that involved Uzumaki being submerged in water. The look on Naruto's face made her laugh, but the Uzumaki priestess told him that with her newly granted powers via divine blessings of the Shinigami and her heritage as an Uzumaki, she had already taken steps to prevent that road of destiny. Naruto made a joke asking her why she couldn't do so for this one. "Because I tried, Naruto. Despite all of my attempts, you will be the one who determines whether the world flows into a new era, or if it will become a barren wasteland of nothingness void of all life. But, I have faith in you. I just wish I could tell you," Shion said to herself. Now, understand, Shion knew she could tell him. Nothing was stopping her from telling him, but she had been granted a vision of what would happen if she did tell him. The results were not what she liked. It had been given to her by the Shinigami because he, specifically, ordered her to keep this knowledge from her family. It did hurt, but he promised her that it was for the best. If Naruto could have faith in the Shinigami, then, perhaps she could as well. It wasn't long before Yuro was the first to come. She took a seat next to Naruto and began speaking with Shion about other things. While they spoke, more moments passed and the three could see the entire residents of the Uzumaki clan grounds walking towards the shrine. "You have the most interesting times even when we're not around, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, his smile disarming to not cause the blonde any more grief than he probably felt. "It's not like I go around asking for trouble, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto replied. Yugao quickly came through the group and scoffed. "Please, your middle name might as well be Trouble," she remarked. Despite himself, Naruto chuckled at this statement. It wasn't his fault that trouble seemed to find him. If he could, then he would blame his mother. She was just as much, if not more, trouble as he was. As funny as this no doubt is, aren't we all supposed to be making our way through some cave deep in the mountains? Some of us were sword shopping until I got my ear pulled by that she-devil over there. Suigetsu said, pointing at Kushina. Said merely found the tiles of the ceiling rather fascinating. "I agree. We're not here to waste time. Let's go," Shion said. She guided the Hinokan group and all those whom they had encountered to the very back of the shrine. All were surprised to find it guarded by at least 5 capable warriors. Each moved to the side. It was obvious from their aura that they were very impressive fighters. Yet, Naruto didn't understand. What was down here that Shion felt she had to protect with these people? And why hadn't anyone else been informed? Shion cleared her throat while the guards worked on unlocking the door. "I'm sure everyone is surprised that no one knew about this. That's because it was discovered around the time that Naruto brought me back to our native home. In my dreams, the Shinigami came to me. I was instructed to build this temple here that none may discover it unless a time like this would happen," she said. The door opened and everyone peered into the darkness below. Scented candles rested on the walls of the cave. Each began flickering with light as the group passed downward. "And what is happening?" Kushina asked. "The Shinigami called it The trial of ascension. I asked what it was, but I wasn't answered. Perhaps at the time I wasn't allowed to know that knowledge. All I know is that below here is a massive door. It's very old. It's likely older than any artifacts that I have ever seen or been allowed to see. I tried opening the door, but even with my powers I could not even get it to budge, even with my powers. Perhaps, I will now receive the answers I've been searching for, Shion said. The silence of the group told her that there was no point in explaining any more. The walk through the cave was longer than anyone could have thought. Perhaps an hour and a half of what this meant or what could be awaiting them was spoken. Yet, this journey came to an end once everyone came before the very thing which Shion had described. In front of everyone laid a massive door of unknown material. Laid upon the left door were various glyphs, symbols, and pictures of times long gone from this mortal age. Upon the right was what Naruto felt as symbols of the gods. It seemed that there were even more gods than the ones that he had seen at the council. Both sides seemed to tell a story which no one knew about, and even more, it was obvious that the door was not meant to be opened by mortal man. I don't understand. There was nothing like this in Mito-bachan's stories that she used to tell me. There's never been any record of this, Kushina said. Her eyes gazed over its mighty design. How could anyone craft this, especially without the clan knowing? We can speculate as much as you'd like, but how do we get it open? Sasuke asked. It was a question that no one knew the answer to. It is not for you to open the door. It is for him to open. Everyone stilled in wonder when they saw the shinigami appear before them. For some, it was the first time their eyes had laid upon the god of death and his menacing aura. For others, it seemed as if they were meeting an old friend, but everyone was rather intrigued when the shinigami pointed at Naruto, but what shook them was what he did next. And those who have decided to take this journey to this place will be the keys that will strengthen him when that time comes, Shin replied. Everyone looked at each other. They were not sure exactly what he was claiming, but it seemed that Naruto needed their help in opening the door, but more than half of the group wasn't Uzumaki. How could they possibly help him? As they all contemplated this new information, they all saw the god of death glow in a very bright light. It was so bright that it lit up the whole cavern system. There was not a single piece of darkness to be found anywhere. But that time is not now. Instead, this time is reflection and understanding. This time is for learning, he claimed, and then the light was gone almost as if it had never been there in the first place. Once the light faded away, everyone was greeted with the sight of a man covered in a white full-length kimono. His hair as white as the snow which drifted to the ground. Some quickly came to recognize him almost similarly to that form that Naruto had acquired when he fought Pain. This white aura was put into a vast contrast between the dark pants he wore as well. Even his pupil-less eyes, which resembled those of a Hyuga, were not enough to discern who he was. Neither were the horn-like protrusions from his forehead a hint either. You see, I am not the first shinigami. Nor will I be the last. Unlike the other gods, my divinity is drawn from the very essence of mortality. I am the current vessel for the divine powers, duties, and responsibilities of the shinigami. I am the fifth vessel of the shinigami, Hamura Otsutsuki. We have much to speak on, you remnants of the Uzumaki family. You as well, remnants of the Uchiha family. You, and all who are under you, will come to play a role in whether or not Naruto's trial of ascension means prosperity for the world, or a ruination of the order that so many before have attempted to establish. Naruto did not like the look of those eyes that were upon him. Even more, he didn't like this foreboding feeling of what he was about to hear. I am sorry, Jiraiya-chan, but this is how it must be. The old geezer has never been wrong before. Unfortunately, there is no evidence to show that he would be wrong now. I know how hard this must be for you, but a small green toad, Fukusaku, was cut off when he saw Jiraiya punch a boulder to pieces. Don't say it, Pa. It has to be wrong. I can't do it. I won't do it. I can't. Jiraiya replied. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. This couldn't be how it was happening. I'm sorry, Jiraiya-chan. But even if you don't inform Tsunade-hime about this, I will do it. The choice is yours. Either you tell her or I will of the image that the old geezer painted for all of us. Fire rains down from the sky. Demons and spirits run through the earth, snatching up the souls of men, women, and children alike. Water turns to blood. Swarms of locusts devour the very life from the lands, the 5 great nations. No stone is left upon another, and the gods will battle for the right of supremacy over our lives. All of this will happen, unless Uzumaki Naruto dies before the winter solstice this year, the elderly toad which made Jiraiya clench his fist so hard blood spilled from the palms of his hands. 3721. Chapter 60. Quote, "You can't change what has already happened, so choose to look ahead instead of behind you." Most of the members of the Uzumaki family, the Uchiha family, and the Hinoken team anxiously waited for the Shinigami to begin his story. All of them felt the unnerving silence around them as they took in his form. The god of death walked amongst the realm of mortals. He did so slowly, taking them all in before his eyes finally turned to his summoner. "Before I begin, as I said, I must offer the Uzumaki family my deepest apologies. The matter that has befallen my summoner has been indirectly caused by my lack of foresight. While I have never held a summoner, I should have offered value foresight in preventing this from happening. Unfortunately, I can't say that it won't happen again," the Shinigami said, shaking everyone. "So what happened to Nisama?" Yura asked cautiously. The intimidating glare of the Shinigami fell on her. The young Uzumaki swallowed a lump in her throat. She'd seen the god of death many times, but his presence was still very intimidating. There was actually something rather poetic about it in a messed up kind of way. The pupil-less man looked at her for a moment or two before he walked over to the walls and touched them, almost longingly. There is a reason why many would synonymize death with evil. No mortal was supposed to kiss the realm of death so many times. Their bodies are feeble, even with the manifestation of chakra. It does not matter, as death is as much about the soul as it is about the body. When one dies, there is a sense of inhibition that's been removed. Naturally, there ought to be. The dead do not like a living brain that would rationalize their being. Instead, the power of life that they are made from creates something that resembles a consciousness. Uzumaki Naruto, have you noticed that you've yet to meet a truly evil, vile spirit? The Shinigami asked. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki thought about this for a moment, but the answer never came to him. "What do you mean by a truly evil or vile spirit?" the blonde asked. "There are many men in the world who do not seek the saving grace found within Kami's light. There are many who worship me, granting death to those worthy and unworthy. The very ground they walk upon is steeped in blood, and so too is their conscience. As there are those who kill for the purpose of protection, there are those who kill for enjoyment. They lay waste to the very edges of eternity. They exist not only within this world, but also in many others where my domain has reached, places beyond your understanding. I've known of them, ever since the first murder of time itself. The vengeful spirits, the cry for innocent blood, and the numerous ones who flow in the life pool, you have only experienced a very small fraction of that," the Shinigami said. Kushina narrowed her eyes as she stared at her son. The others looked at him as well. They were all confused by what they were hearing. Hell, never mind them standing in the presence of the god of death still made them all shiver. "What does he mean?" Yugao asked, whispering to Kakashi. The one-eyed Hinoken member frowned. "I don't know, but something tells me we're not going to like this," he responded just as quietly. Yura, and Kushina stood close to Naruto, perhaps holding him for his comfort or for their own. No one knew where these words were going, and they all subconsciously prepared themselves for the explanation. Unknown to them all, Kakashi was indeed right. It was not one any of them were going to like. "I have dealt with this matter many times over the course of the avatars I've used to instill my will into its physical manifestations. As I have a summoner, it hadn't been brought to my attention fully of the consequences. You see, Shikyo, my realm deals with not just good spirits. I deal with the most vile, repulsive ones as well. As you were new to my power, my aura was enough to protect you from the more severe spirits you might encounter. Now, as you've grown, you've become less dependent on my aura. That has left you susceptible to the many evil spirits that not only roam this world, but others as well. They are many, and some of them are stronger than you would ever think possible. There are some that could level your entire planet with one jutsu. There are others that could decimate and control armies or countries with but a word. All of them seek not life, only destruction. More than that, they seek you," he said, pointing at the blonde. Naruto widened his eyes. So did everyone else. They each looked at each other before Sasuke took a step forward. "So there's countless evil spirits around us, and they all want to possess the loser. Since he's your summoner, shouldn't he be the ruler over all spirits?" the Uchiha asked. "Above all, my mother emphasized free will to all beings. Though they acknowledge he is superior to them, they will still plan against him for their own means. The reason they can do this is because, Uzumaki Naruto, there is evil within you, a great evil, some of the greatest I've ever felt from any mortal, Shin said, which made everyone gasp. Kushina and all the others looked at him in worry. However, none of them were more surprised than the blonde himself. I'm evil, Naruto asked. I did not say you were evil. I said there is great evil within you. Just as there is the capacity for righteousness, justice, and good within you, there is also a great evil. It is one that you haven't confronted in all your life. Mother always said the greatest evil she'd ever seen came from self-destruction. That same destruction lies within you and they took advantage of that. I should have prepared you better, instructed you further. This happened because of my negligence, the Shinigami said. No one said anything for a moment before Yuri spoke. So then, how do we get this evil out of Ni-chan? I've never felt anything evil or vile from him before, the young Kunoichi said while the others contemplated her words. As man lives and breathes, so too does the struggle of good and evil take shape within him, vying for the body and the mind to set its road forth, Yugao said while Naruto continued to look at the floor, too stunned to speak. There is the capacity for evil within all of us. The Uchiha clan was an example of that. I fear even Sasuke might have gone down that path eventually had these matters not taken the turn they do now. However, I'm still confused. Shinigami-sama, I hope I speak with no disrespect, but you are the god of death. Could you not simply command these beings to leave Naruto alone or pass them on? Makoto asked. Hamura Otsutsuki stepped along the ground, his white robe fluttering in the air. This is not such an easy question to answer. Indeed, I could, however, if I were dealing with a normal person, the Shinigami replied. Naruto gawked. Hey, I'm normal, he exclaimed. No, you are not, said everyone else immediately. Despite the situation, the blonde growled at them all while Hamura chuckled. No, Uzumaki Naruto, you are not normal. That is both a good and a bad thing. Remember, we gods cannot force obedience. Naturally, there are consequences to bear and the one who took you over has been dealt with, but the only one who can stop them is yourself. Despite popular belief, my powers are not almighty. Even I must adhere to certain rules regarding my domain. Now, I believe this has gone off topic long enough, he said as he turned to them all. Everyone straightened up. Shikyo, just as there are those living full of misdeeds, there are also many abominations in this realm as well. It seems I cannot protect you from them forever. They are attached to the appetizing darkness hidden deep within your soul, some of them have wandered for hundreds, thousands, centuries, or millennia. At best, I can isolate them to the ones that come from your world. As you grow stronger however, so too shall the dangers become more and more severe, the Shinigami said. Wait, you actually said that before. Other worlds, you mean, there's sentient life beyond our world? Yura asked. Indeed there is. You see, I, Otsutsuki Hamura, am from such a people. We Otsutsuki have come long before the age of shinobi. It was from my brother, Otsutsuki Hagoromo, that your chakra is derived. You might best know him to be the sage of 6 paths, Hamura said. He was real? Yugao asked in surprise. It was no surprise why. Many shinobi grew up on the legends and myths of the sage of 6 paths. Most thought him just to be some bedtime story that parents told their children to help them sleep. Most told them to not be afraid of the monsters in the dark, for the sage of 6 paths shall protect all the innocent. As one grew older, they fell out of such stories. Indeed he was. However, that is a story that will have to wait for another time. Remember yourself, Shikyo. There are many spirits that desire you, many with evil intentions. I have accepted many, an innumerable number into my embrace. However, I shall give you another technique to learn. I'm sure you wondered where the concepts of heaven and hell are. Well, you shall find out. This shall be your best defense in the days to come, Hamura said as he tapped the blonde's forehead. Everyone squinted their eyes as a harsh light covered the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's body. When you have broken free of this darkness, this hatred, this evil, you will come back here and undergo your ascension. Look within yourself for the answers that you will seek. I thought you ready when I sent dreams to your priestess. Unfortunately, that was not the case. However, I know that you shall be ready someday. I shall await that time, Hamura's voice uttered before it slowly fell away. Once the Shinigami was gone, that left everyone else alone. Each of them stared at Naruto and the blonde started to feel a little self-conscious. "So, I guess I'm going evil now?" he asked. Sasuke snorted. "You haven't got the demeanor for it, loser," he replied while the others chuckled for a moment. Yugao took a step forward. "Well, he didn't really give us much to go off of. Either way, I don't think Tsunade-sama's gonna accept Naruto getting possessed by evil spirits for the Konoha incident. Even if she did, I doubt she'd let him back into the village, especially if they're allowed to gain access to his abilities," she said. Kakashi hummed. "Indeed, it seems there's something within Naruto that we've all missed, even himself. That said, with the Shinigami's assistance, it won't be as bad as it was before. He also told us that as long as Naruto can get rid of this darkness within him then the spirits won't affect him," the Hinoken member replied. "Well, how do we do that? Do we gotta put Ni-chan in a bath in godly essence or something? No humans ever lived without some form of hate or darkness," Yuri said while Kushina stood to her feet. The redhead bit her lip, thinking over all of this. She was already angry enough at Tsunade. She was already angry enough at Konoha. She would not abandon her son for a second time. She'd sooner rip Konoha itself apart than allow such a thing. Then again, the longer Naruto was unassigned to the Hinoken team, the greater the imbalance in their power showed. Unfortunately, that meant they couldn't take him on assignments anymore until he was reinstated. The matriarch of the Uzumaki family wasn't going to give Tsunade any more leverage than she already had. "Sochi, how do you feel right now?" Kushina asked. "Well, slightly depressed, Datbeo. I just learned I've got some dark stuff that lures evil spirits inside me. I've been basically banished from Konoha. I'm pretty sure those banished can't become Hokage, and now I'm worried that what happened to the village will also happen to Uzushio. So yeah, I'm on top of the world right now," he said as he rubbed the back of his head. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki sighed, his head hanging low. "I don't know, guys. For the last few years, these have been the happiest years of my life. I wouldn't trade them away for anything. I don't know anything about darkness inside me. Though, if there is then maybe I should also leave Uzushio. I couldn't bear the thought of doing something to this place too," he said. The blonde chuckled humorlessly to himself. All that time, all that work, trying his damnedest to show the villagers that he wasn't the monster. Who knows what they were calling him now? It all actually seemed like one very bad dream. Okay, Ni-sama, now isn't the time to turn into Sasuke-san. Besides, it's better if you're here than anywhere else. If it does happen to you again, then you could cause an international incident. You're the head of the Uzumaki clan now. You're our leader, Yura said. Yura's right, Naruto. As the HEA, what? He's the head of the Uzumaki clan. Yugao exclaimed while Kushina sighed. Alright, we can discuss that later. For now, let's all get out of this dark cave. Our business here has been concluded. Sochi, I lost my chance to be with you because of Konoha-related affairs. I'm not gonna allow that to happen a second time. We'll come up with a plan and what to do with you for now. In the meantime, I want you to think about anything you're feeling angry about. Whatever this darkness, this hatred is, it's something that's been inside you for a long time, the older redhead said. Naruto slowly nodded, not even trusting himself to speak. Instead, Yuri brought him to his feet and everyone walked out. They passed by Shion, who was busy performing her shrine duties with the other training priests and priestesses. The young head of the Uzumaki clan didn't really remember the walk back home. His thoughts left him preoccupied as he opened and led himself up to his room. Yo Kyuubi, this, darkness. Do you sense it? The blonde asked. Yes, however, for your own growth, that is something you must discover for yourself. No one can always give you the answers, brat. Don't worry. I'm actually coming up with a little plan in case you're taken over again, the white-furred nine-tailed fox said. You gonna fill me in on it? The Jinchuriki asked as he laid on his bed. I can't do that. The less you know, the less they'll know if they do somehow possess you. I promise, it's only for your benefit. We just got started on this whole, friend, thing. I won't let it break that easily, the fox said before he went silent. Meanwhile, Naruto continued to look up at his ceiling. So, even the Kyuubi could sense that hatred within him. Well, perhaps there was no surprise why. It was always rumored that the Kyuubi spawned wherever there was great hatred and war. Maybe that was why he could sense the negativity. Then why couldn't Naruto do it? The young man held up his hand and looked it over. Nothing seemed different from anything else. His thoughts were his own for now. He didn't suddenly feel like murdering anyone. He didn't even feel agitated about being banished from Konoha. Perhaps he should have, but that was counterproductive at this point. He'd seen the destruction he caused. Tsunade had to do what she did to protect the village. It was certainly the right thing to do, but... Arg. This is so stupid. What the hell's wrong with me? Naruto asked as he tossed and turned on the bed, nothing there to answer him. Being left alone, he channeled the Honsho through his eyes. With it, he could see the innumerable spirits, each of them floating. Some of them waved to him happily, others bowed and showed reverence. Not a single one of them showed any sign of malice towards him. However, clearly that wasn't the case. Even now, hidden from his view, were the vile, evil, borderline psychotic spirits willing to watch the world burn. Why would they still be allowed to roam if they were that dangerous? Then there was also that technique the shinigami gave him to study. What was he supposed to do with it? With this technique he would supposedly understand the concepts of heaven and hell, paradise and torment. The former member of Hinoken leaned up. He quickly opened his palm and released his Honsho. The white flames danced in his hands. He never thought that the Honsho could be separated into two different energies. Supposedly, both could cleanse spirits whether seeing fit to grant them eternal peace or eternal damnation. Was this supposed to help him fight the people threatening to take him over? All of this was too much to even process at one time. Hell, he couldn't even wrap his mind around the fact that there was other life out there aside from his own. He always contemplated but never entertained the idea more than necessary. After a while, a knock at the door came. The Uzumaki patriarch assumed it wasn't his fiancée. She'd have no reason to knock in their own room. "Come in," he said, a little tiredly. His voice really wasn't into it right now. The door opened and inside came Yura. She closed the door and walked over to him. Without a word, she sat on the bed. Once again, Naruto took notice of her long, red hair. It was so long it unraveled a little on the nape of the bed. "I know you'll probably be disappointed in me when you hear what I have to say, Ni-sama. However, I want to be honest with you. Even if you do turn evil, I will always love you. I would go through Konoha and the other great nations if it meant I could stand at your side. For all you've done for everyone, I think it's only right that someone should do something for you. If Konoha won't have you, then they won't have me either. I resigned as a shinobi of the village," she said, waiting for the reprimand to come through. Surprisingly, there wasn't one. She turned and noticed Naruto looking at the ground. He chuckled. "I know what you're thinking. I should probably be screaming at the top of my lungs about that and why you'd do that, but I can't blame you. Right now, I don't feel any different. I've never felt so close to everyone else yet, so oddly separated. It feels like it's back to those times where I got to watch everyone hang around with their parents, either after the academy or during sports festivals. There always seemed to be a line drawn there. A place where I couldn't go no matter how hard I tried. Now, it might seem a little selfish, but I can't help feeling so damn happy that someone would even try to cross that line, that divide, for me. Yura, I can't say I approve of what you did, but, thank you. Thank you so much," Naruto said. Yura threw her arms around her lover, holding his firm back. They stayed in silence for a little while, accepting each other's presence until they stared into each other's eyes. They shared a brief kiss, reveling in the passion between them. Unfortunately, while they couldn't be physically intimate for now, the quiet flame that burned within them continued to stroke itself. When they separated, they fell back to the bed. "So what are you going to do now?" "As far as I'm aware, retired shinobi can't return to active duty outside of very special circumstances," he said while Yura chuckled. "Well, I wouldn't do that without a plan. I could join Zabuza-san's efforts in protecting Haku-san. I've noticed she'd had less time to train with the politics that the position comes with. She has the reserves for a clone or two, but the mental strain is something she's still working with. I could help her with that. I'll guess I'll also just have to fill out a civilian license to go home in Konoha. At least they can't stop me there. Either that or, I'll join you and Yuri in your little expedition," she said. Naruto smiled. "So you knew about that, huh?" he asked. "I know my two troublemakers very well. Besides, I find myself with a lot of free time now." No matter where you go, I'll always be with you, Yura answered as they continued to lean on the bed. On the other side of the door, Kushina smiled and walked away. It seemed she wouldn't have to check on her fiancé like she intended. Instead, she walked down the stairs where most of the other Hinokan members and family were assigned. How is he doing? Yugao asked. Yura's with him, so I think he'll do just fine. It's been a bad day for him this far and he'll need some time to come to terms with it all. Also, I want to find the source of this darkness that the Shinigami warned us about in Naruto. If we can get rid of that, then it's possible that we'll never have an encounter like that again, she replied. The others looked around, either sitting on the couch or leaning on the wall. And how are we supposed to do that? The only evil thing I'm used to seeing the Dobi do is his pranks. Even those he stopped. Besides, the world would be pretty perfect if we could get rid of the evil in everyone, Sasuke said from where he sat. The Hinokan team glanced at him for a moment before Kakashi leaned off the wall. Everyone has a way of hiding their pain in ways to appear strong. I think we've possibly forgotten that it's only been 1 or 2 years since Naruto had anything resembling a normal family. Plus, he dealt with the animosity from the village, believing he had to become Hokage just to get everyone else's respect. He wanted people to treat him like he was important, a somebody. However, if even Naruto doesn't realize he's got it, then how do we get rid of it? Kakashi asked. While the others weren't too sure how to answer that question, Kushina tried to keep the shame off her face. It was true, she knew what Naruto would endure as Jinchuriki when she died. She'd never forgotten it. Even now, she still remembered when he slept with her, looks of anguish on his face. Naturally, those stopped occurring after the first month or 2 of her being revived, but every now and then there always seemed to be a forlorn look in her son's eye. Sasuke couldn't deny that as well. He knew what it was like to be alone. He remembered blatantly telling it to Naruto's face that he didn't know what it was like to lose something he'd never had. Of course, the Uchiha heir came to recognize this later. He wouldn't ever say it out loud, but Naruto was indeed his best friend. Another brother even. He'd seen the signs, but his pride hadn't allowed him to show any type of compassion. Perhaps in some ways, he was just as damaged as his friend was. So are we sending Ni-chan to monk school? All that talk about facing your inner demons, finding truth, and aligning yourself with the power of good? Yuri asked. Everyone heard someone guffaw at the question. They turned their heads and noticed Yugao holding her hand over her mouth. Sorry, that was funnier than I thought it'd be, she said, not trying to make light of the situation, but finding some odd humor in it. That's actually not a bad idea, Makoto said, making everyone look at her in shock. Well, we're not exactly sure where to start. The best place in identifying this would be in places meant for self-reflection. It's a shame that Naruto's been basically banished from Konoha. We could have used Inoichi-san's expertise in the matter concerning these developments as well, Makoto said before Kushina blinked. The leader of Hinokan quickly leaned up. Wait, he might not have to go to the fire temple, she said, gathering everyone's attention. She quickly bit her thumb and summoned Shiraku. The man quickly appeared in front of everyone, his ghost-like body standing before them all. He bowed. Greetings, Kushina-sama. How might I be of service to you? The former monk of the fire temple asked. Kushina turned to him. I want you to mentor my son. He's been banished from Konoha and we've all just learned there is something terrible lying within him. Right now, we can't seek any help from Konoha facilities and I've known many of your teachings and your expertise. I'm not asking for you to create a miracle, but if you could help us discover what's wrong with Naruto then I'd be indebted to you, she answered. The wise monk hummed. If it is within my capabilities then I'd be honored to have Naruto-sama learn of some of the ways to the enlightened path. All are welcome and we turn none away who struggle with themselves. I'm not sure what I can provide, but I'll do my best, he said. The leader of Hinokan sighed. Thank you. That means a lot to me. We'll give him today to sort himself out. Tomorrow, I hope you'll treat him well. I ask that you update me on any progress made at the end of the week. The rest of us will continue to handle our business until Tsunade assigns up a mission. Regardless of our personal feelings, she is still the Hokage and our leader. Even though I'm pissed off, it wouldn't do good since tensions have been high recently. Wheel. Kushina stopped when she saw 2 spirits fly through the ceiling. Both of them landed in front of her. Kushina-sama, Tara and Taji reporting. We bring urgent news from our investigation into Shimura Danzo. Taji said, her head low to the ground. The redhead narrowed her eyes. Right, Naruto did say he sent out 2 spirits on reconnaissance. Glad you've returned. What have you found out? She asked. We found we found I don't remember, Taji said in shock while Terra frowned. I don't either. I remember it was something extremely important. We got to the underground facility. We found something and then we traveled as fast as we could back here. Yet, I don't remember what we were looking for, Terra replied next. What the hell was Kushina supposed to even do with that? You're not really giving me a lot to go off of, she thought to herself. So apparently, there was something relating to Danzo that these two had investigated, but somehow they forgot their objective. Could spirits even do that? Well, there was the saying that vengeful spirits tend to be in peace when they remember themselves. Not like Kushina ever had the time to commune with the dead before. She shook her head. That's all you remember? No people you saw, no geographical information, anything memorable? She asked. Try as the 2 spirits might, they came up short. They couldn't remember anything from the time they'd been gone. All they remembered was that their mission was supposedly one of vital importance. Disappointed, they heard their heads down. Kushina sighed and scratched her cheek. Okay then, do you at least remember how you got here? Think you can retrace your steps? She asked. We'd be willing to try. Our honor has already been tarnished upon delivering a ridiculous failure. If you would have us, we'll investigate to our fullest. Taji answered. Kushina grumbled and pinched the bridge of her nose. She really didn't want to deal with Tsunade right now. Alright, then, that'll be our plan for now. You 2 are dismissed. I'll inform my son, she said. Yes, Kushina-sama. The 2 said before they faded away. That brought her attention back to everyone else. What happened? Makoto asked. Kushina sighed and rolled her shoulders. It seemed that the spirits hadn't revealed themselves to the others. In fact, the redhead was starting to wonder if she'd actually been talking to herself in front of the others. That alone was embarrassing enough. Thankfully, they all seemed to know that something had gone on. Apparently, Sochi sent out a few spirits to track Danzo down. They say they found him or something extremely urgent about him, but they don't remember what it is, she said. They don't remember what it is. Yugao asked. Kushina shrugged. I know. It sounds just as stupid to me as it does to you. However, they might be able to retrace where they think they've been. I'm going to assign Sochi to the investigation. It'll give him something to focus on. While I'm more than willing to wring Tsunade by her neck right now, I know she won't send us off on account of some amnesiac spirits. Additionally, I'll be sending Yuro with him. At this point, the last thing he needs is to be alone. With any luck, I can join the search since I can count for this as summoner duties. Besides, I too think I need some time away from the village, or at least Tsunade anyway. As for the rest of you, I imagine Tsunade will assign you to investigating the Jashin cult. Should you find yourselves in that mission, then Yugao will be in charge. Everyone support her to the best of your abilities. Yugao, make use of any available resources at your disposal. Understood, Yugao returned. A nod of her head, Kushina brushed her hands through her hair. Alright, the team will be dismissed. You're all free to do as you like for today. Tomorrow, we'll return home. I want all of you gathered, she said. What about me? Yuri asked with her head raised. Kakashi smiled. Well, I think someone has to prepare for her Chunin exams. I believe it begins in 1 or 2 months. I'm sure they'll set you up with a few replacement genin and Chunin since you don't exactly have a team for yourself, the one-eyed Jonin answered. Stunned, Yuri jumped up. That's right. Aro Oji didn't even give me my reward, damn it. Still, I was planning to go with Nichan on our journey. A male shinobi and kunoichi, banished from their homeland, braving the nations, elements, and themselves before they find each other. Datbayan. Can I still hand in my resignation? She asked. Sasuke snorted, a smile on his face. No, you can't. I should also stop spending your pay on those ridiculous romance novels, he replied. Now that's just mean, Sasuke. Yuri fired back as the others laughed. Kushina shook her head. Please, no more talk about anyone getting banished or resigning. I've had enough of it for now. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your time off, Kushina said. Hi, the others said before they got up and started to go their own way. Meanwhile, Kushina just sat in a chair, her head down. Minato, Kushina probably didn't have a right to consult you in her thoughts like she was doing, but she honestly wondered what you'd think of the fact that Konoha banished your son. The redhead leaned her head back. What am I supposed to do? She thought to herself as she closed her eyes. Back at the Uzumaki compound in Konoha, things weren't much better. And we're just gonna let them fucking run him out of the village. The fucker grew up here. He's the reason Konoha even has a fucking professional sealing team. Are they even allowed to do that? Tayuya asked angrily while the others gathered around. Watch your fucking language, Tayuya. We're all pissed off enough, Riza said, a scowl on her face as she sat in her chair. Fuka, Gurren, Yukimaru, Shi, Kamachi, and the others sat around the living room, contemplating their current situation. When I signed on to become a kunoichi here, it wasn't because I hold any particular attachment to this village. I was pretty close to destroying it after all. I came here to be with my family, not anyone else, Fuka said, brushing a piece of her hair as she did so. Alright, let's not give Konoha an even bigger reason to hate us. We already lost a few sponsorships and trade deals due to the destruction. The entire village is also in a bit of a lockdown. What we have to do now is not make tensions higher, Gurren replied while the others slowly nodded. Shi and Kamachi glanced at each other, both slowly nodded. The Hyuga clan have also sent us their condolences. Hiyashi-san is proposing to send Hinata and a few other Hyuga under the guise of clan relations. Legally, the Hokage has no way to stop them under the clan charter issued from the time that the founding Cage had the first summit. However, I think everyone's going to know what it's about, she answered. Let them know then. We're not just gonna let them fuck us over continuously, are we? Many of us aren't here because we discovered the will of fire or whatever these damn treehuggers call it. We came here to have some fucking family ties. I don't know about any of you, but I ain't ever going back to the life I used to have before this. I'd sooner roll over and die. Tayuya fired back. Riza leaned forward. My dumbass daughter's mood aside, I'm inclined to agree. However, we can't act rash here. With Yura announcing her dismissal from the Konoha forces, some might take that as the clan distancing itself from the village. We also have to remember that Naruto worked very hard to change public opinion about him, and even that's only been recent. Who knows how much he's damaged it with this recent act. Besides, we might have to consider the fact that Konoha's right to keep tabs on us, she said. Kamachi frowned. We've grown too powerful in too short a time, she said, echoing the thoughts of nearly everyone in the room. Is that not a good thing? If we're powerful, then we make Konoha more powerful, right? Yukimaru asked. Gurren patted his shoulder. Indeed, that would be true. However, there are many underlying politics in terms of clan strength and what that means in view of others. To many, the name Uzumaki wasn't even thought to be a noble name. After all, in Konoha, Naruto was our only representative and many despised him. However, as more and more of us came, people started to remember the history of our clan. 2 Uzumaki married 2 Hokage. Plus, the Uzumaki clan has slowly migrated itself back into the village. Since then we've risen to the ranks of not only a prestige clan, but a noble one. We were one of the founding members of the village, if indirectly. What we've accomplished in less than 2 years could take some at least 10 or 15, she replied. So, we could be seen as amassing forces and, since Urane left, that might mean we've grown powerful enough to not need Konoha anymore. He asked. Fuka chuckled. More or less. It's usually the powerful clans that tend to be on the receiving end of scrutiny. First it was the Senju, then it was the Uchiha, and now it's the Uzumaki. How fitting that it's the village's founders that come under the most suspicion. In fact, many believe the SNJU died out from being a mutation disease from being the only clan to produce the wood release. Some also speculate it was from a poison designed specifically to take them out. Either way, Konoha's founding clans don't have the best history, she answered. So what do we do then? She asked. Riza snorted. We bite our teeth and wait to see how this thing falls out. Let's not rush into any rash decisions. Our actions will not only affect our clan, but the Hyuga as well. We're all one clan now, sworn brothers and sisters. But if anyone fucking tries to mess with us, you've got my go-ahead to make them the Tooth Fairy's favorite visitor. She replied. Gurren sighed. Well, it's not like I don't understand their concerns. Naruto is very powerful. In fact, he might be one of the most powerful shinobi in the world. What can they do if they try to cross him? He can't die. He holds one of the most powerful beings as a summon. He also commands the dead, meaning his information network is technically the most powerful across the entire elemental nations. If it wasn't for his kind attitude, he could rule the entire world if he desired, the blue-haired Kunoichi said. Yuya laughed. Please, I've met a fucker who wanted to rule the world. Shithead ain't got it in him, the foul-mouthed Uzumaki answered. However, she narrowed his eyes. Beware the fury of a patient man, the blonde answered, his hands interlaced together. Naturally, she didn't believe someone like Naruto would go down such a vengeful path, but he'd seen many good men lose their way to their own lust and greed for power. As our resident poet said, let's hope we never have to find out which of you is right. Anyway, I'll be going. Have dinner without me, I'll be home late, Gurren said as she stood up and started to walk away. Fuka and Riza smiled. Tell Kotetsu-san we said hello. The latter said. Shut up, she hollered back from down the hall. The others laughed before Fuka got serious. Well, all this talk of the village, I might as well state some other matters. You won't see me for a little while. I've been assigned to the mission investigating the Jishinists that somehow infiltrated our compound. I'll try to get back in time for Yuri's Chunin exams, but I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. In any case, keep your guard up, she said as she walked away as well. Then in that case, it's time for Yukimaru-kun's training tonight. We'll review the taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu courses. Kamachi-san, I'd like your instruction as well, she said. Ah, understood, the blonde replied before she stood up with the former. Yukimaru nodded diligently and followed them away. This left to Yuya with her mother. It's not gonna fucking stop with just this, is it? She asked. Riza grumbled and threw off her headband. No, I don't think it is. If it isn't, we're gonna have to fucking take some measures of our own. I still haven't forgotten the way Konoha abandoned us to the other nations. Nothing is going to separate my family this time. The redhead said with a scowl before she stood up and walked off with her daughter as well. Jiraiya stared down at Konoha with a burdened heart. They say a shinobi shouldn't form attachments, those attachments keep them from making the best decisions for the sake of the village. The Sannin knew that. It was probably why even he'd been able to threaten Tsunade, the woman he loved with all his heart, to sway her from turning to Orochimaru. He hadn't allowed his attachment to get the better of him. However, he couldn't say it didn't now. When he looked down at Konoha, he remembered his teacher, Sarutobi, and his student, Namikaze Minato. Both of them died for their village. They were the model example for Konoha shinobi. No matter how much it pained them, they made the hard choices. They made the choices that no one else would. They made the choices that no one else could. Perhaps, that was what made them cage material. Sarutobi-sensei, Minato, what am I supposed to do? Jiraiya thought to himself. He remembered the small stories Sarutobi had of Naruto. A boy with strong feet on the ground and a sharp head in the clouds. Indeed, he wasn't the brightest bulb of the case, but he always seemed to shine for longer when others fizzled out. Minato always said he somehow got the feeling, whenever he touched Kushina's stomach, that there was an inexplicable warmth in there. Something that always made someone who touched it happy. Truth be told, Jiraiya felt bad for not being there to raise Naruto. As Kushina said, he and Tsunade promised to be his godparents. Both had failed in their duties. True, Tsunade's circumstances were a bit more complicated than his own, but that didn't necessarily excuse her or him. However, Jiraiya couldn't take Naruto. His work was too dangerous. He had plenty of enemies. Not as many as Minato, but a few troublesome ones. Additionally, he did have his spy network to maintain. That network involved a lot of unsavory men and women, people who a young boy shouldn't be around. Plus, Naruto held the Kyuubi. Konoha wouldn't have allowed him out of the village anyway. Still, the fact remained that Jiraiya knew he could have done better. However, as much as he loved Naruto, he loved Konoha more. It was his home. His friends, their friends, their friends' friends, and all their families were interwoven together. Each one seemed to expound upon the last. In the end, the whole village was one big family. Sometimes families fight. Sometimes family members don't like either other. Sometimes family members do terrible things to each other. However, in the end, they all tried to tolerate each other, growing and strengthening their bonds. To Jiraiya, that was what a village was. That was the will of fire, something to be passed down to the next generation. No single family member was more important than the others. Even those Jiraiya might love more. The old toad sage once said that the person he'd train would either save the world or destroy it. At first, Jiraiya thought that might be Nagato. Now, he wondered if it was Naruto. If it was the latter, then clearly he'd messed up. Such terrible things were coming to not just Konoha, but all the elemental nations. Still, how much could one trust in a prophecy? They were never absolute. However, the fact that this news came from the great toad sage was very concerning. He was known for having very accurate prophecies. To save Konoha, we'll have to kill its most beloved Hokage's son. He's also a very powerful asset as well. At the very least, I'll need to speak to Tsunade about this, Jiraiya thought to himself as he surveyed the destruction caused by Naruto. He'd heard that his student had been banished because of the destructive nature of his new powers. While he was still a little sore over the contract with the toads being removed, he would never wish Naruto to be banished. Especially not now. Sigh, for once perhaps the Gamma Sennin was the one who really needed a drink instead of his former teammate. He slumped his shoulders. Tsunade's not gonna like this. Jiraiya thought before he entered the village. The Sannin always liked entering the village at nighttime. In fact, he sometimes wished the sun would never rise just so he could travel the village when it was dark. For one, the ladies liked to enjoy their baths at night. It provided great cover. He'd seen many sights and gotten a lot of good research out of his ordeals. The second was because he enjoyed looking at the night lights. The entire village seemed to come alive with the voices of laughter and merriment. It reminded him of just what he was fighting for. He fought for all those people down there. Indeed, some of them probably didn't deserve it, but that's what it meant to be a loyal follower to your own way. Jiraiya landed on the ledge of the Hokage's window. He leaned against the wall. He heard talking inside. From what he heard, it sounded like Tsunade was talking to her apprentice, that Haruno girl. I really expected to believe that, Tsunade-sama. Whether you believe it or not is on your own terms, Sakura. However, I've seen you working with Councilwoman Kaharu. Now, what you do in your free time is on you. However, you are entering a place you're not ready for. Politics are not something you should get involved in. It doesn't suit your temperament, Sakura. Yes, these are why there have been strange happenings around the village. Now, even you know the value of discretion. The only reason I'm even bringing this forward to you is because Naruto felt you should know as his former teammate. Now keep in mind, Sakura, this is a very important secret. If I learn that you've spoken with anyone outside of authorized personnel, then I'll make you wish you stayed in the dark, Tsunade threatened. Jiraiya chuckled, leaning his head against the wall. Yeah, learning Naruto had a contract with the Shinigami would indeed turn a lot of heads. In fact, many were still suspicious of him. I understand, Tsunade-sama. However, if he does have one, then why doesn't he simply raise up every Uzumaki or every Uchiha who ever died? He could even bring back the Senju clan. Sakura exclaimed. Tsunade sighed. It's not that easy, Sakura. Think of how all the other nations would feel if Konoha suddenly got 3 of the strongest clans in history back in their walls. That would already tip the scales of the nations against us. Remember, we have treaties with Suna, Kiri, and Kumo, but none of these are destined to last forever. We also have an only, manageable relationship with Iwa. I've got no delusions that many of them still harbor a hatred for Minato and what he did in the Third Great Shinobi War. Besides, even if we did do that, I have no doubt that it would throw the entire world into chaos. Imagine what will happen if they learn of Naruto doing this. He'll quite literally become the most important person in the whole damn world, higher than me, higher than the other 4 Kage. Think of what people will do when they learn what he's capable of, Tsunade said. Jiraiya took notice of the silence for a little while. Alright, I can understand that, but Tsunade-sama, you can't actually agree with this whole, incest thing. It's disgusting. In fact, it should be outlawed. I'm not saying imprison Naruto, but get him some damn help. Even Sasuke-kun's doing it. Sakura exclaimed. Tsunade sighed. That's easier said than done, Sakura. True, I'm not entirely settled on the idea myself, but it'd be easier if Naruto and Kushina were just civilians like you and your family are. If they were, I could, with the authority of the Hokage, put a stop to the act. However, as part of the clan charters, I cannot intervene in private matters of the clans unless it directly contradicts my power as the Hokage. Also, it's their business. They understand the social stigma if such a thing is revealed. No one is saying you have to accept their decision, but make sure you respect it. There are more men out there than just Sasuke, Sakura. If you spend your life chasing your dream, you'll find you left the real world behind. Believe me, I know. You're dismissed, the Godime said. Jiraiya heard nothing for a moment before the door closed. Alright, you purr. What do you want? Tsunade asked. Still as aware as ever, Jiraiya said before he opened the door and slipped inside. Well, I just had to see my favorite princess in all of Konoha. Apprentice giving you trouble? He asked while the blonde Cage shuffled some papers. Her and the whole damn team. I swear I don't know how Kakashi lived as long as he did taking care of those troublemakers, she answered. Jiraiya chuckled for a moment before he leaned against the wall, the pregnant pause allowing both of them to gather their thoughts. I received another vision from the great Toad Sage. Tsunade, I saw what became of the village. You have to reverse the banishment order. We need to detain Naruto in the village. If we don't, we're going to regret it. That's all I'll say, he said. Tsunade stopped writing for a moment. She looked at her former teammate. Well, that's not ominous. Care to give me something more concrete? She asked. I could barely give you that. Don't ask for the impossible. Well, if you want a better description. What happened in Konoha will be 100 times worse to every nation, Jiraiya claimed. Now that got Tsunade's attention. She looked up and stared into the eyes of her former teammate. He looked at her seriously, nodding his head. Jiraiya, she warned. I know, but we have to look at the worst-case scenario. Also the Great Toad Sage has been known to have accurate prophecies, the Sannin said. Tsunade hummed. Yeah, just like this child of prophecy you've been talking about. First, you thought it was the AIM orphan, then you thought it was Minato, next you're going to tell me it might be Naruto. As far as I've seen, I don't see any child of prophecy yet, Tsunade said. Jiraiya sighed. If only we could all see the future, Haim. Look, I don't want it to be Naruto either. Brat's given me some damn good material to work with and he's my student's son. Additionally, we're still on Kushina's bad side. You probably more so than I after that whole debacle with the banishment. However, we can't sit still. If something like that happens again, we'll need to form countermeasures. Have you forgotten that he also holds the Kyuubi? Imagine what will happen if we're not ready, the Toad Sannin stated. Tsunade stiffened. No, she had not forgotten. Tell you what, how about you meet up with him? You two haven't seen each other for a little while and you need a break from investigating the Akatsuki. You're closest with him and I don't think he'd want to see me right now. I pretty much just slammed the door on his dream and buried it. You can monitor him and we'll remain in constant communication, she said. Jiraiya sighed. Yeah, well, I don't really know where he is right now. I was gone when you made that banishment order, he answered back. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, rolling her shoulders. He's probably in the land of eddies. It's the most likely place to be since I banished him. I don't know if he'll stay there though, she said. Jiraiya sighed. Well, I guess I'll head out first thing in the morning. So, when do you get off? He asked. Shut up and get out. I've got no reason to go to bars since I'd quit the fucking sake. At least there's no more morning headaches, she said. Though Tsunade didn't see it, there was a frown on Jiraiya's face. When she looked up, it was gone. Oh well, no rest for the weary I guess. See you later, Haim. The Sannin said before heading out the window. Tsunade just sighed and put her head in her hands. That fucking brat. Why did everything involving him have to be so damn complicated? Kushina sighed as she stood outside the door to the bedroom shared by her and her son. Yura had long left and he'd been alone ever since. It was like her son to mope. Then again, today proved to be a lot more stressful than most. The fiancé of Uzumaki Naruto opened the door and she saw her son at his study desk. Sochi, what are you doing? She asked. Naruto turned around. He smiled at his mother while she noticed a piece of paper on his desk. Well, as they say, Ka-chan, time waits for no man. I decided to help Haku in catching up with some of the paperwork we've no doubt left for her. It's a little boring, but it's gotta get done. It's also given me some time to think about everything. So what have you done? She asked, taking a piece of paper. Well, I collected the local taxes from the businesses that have started appearing. I've also signed off on some building sites that I know will be amiable places to live. I also authorized the construction of an academy, one for shinobi and one for civilians, he said. Kushina frowned. You know we're not in the business of training people, Sochi, she said. Naruto nodded. True, but I'm looking at this as more than just us, Ka-chan. Most of the men and women here don't know how to fight. We've already been nearly invaded by Akatsuki at least 2 times. Our home isn't impregnable. We're going to need to defend it and there aren't enough of us to do so. Besides, I don't want the people being spooked or scared if I'm summoning ghosts and other spirits to protect the island. I'm also a little wary to be doing so anyway. This is a good alternative. Besides, it'd do well to expand our clan's reach into other affairs, he said. Kushina blinked. Who are you and what did you do with my stupid son? The Kyuubi Jinchuriki laughed. He then lunged for his mother, making her yelp before her firm ass sat on his lap. Oh, he's still here, Kushina. I'm just trying to live up to expectations as the head of the Uzumaki clan, and as your soon-to-be husband, he answered. The female Uzumaki's heart swooned for a moment or two before she caressed his face. You're sexy when you try to talk smart, Databane, she said before she kissed on the lips. Her son reciprocated the affection, enjoying his mother's taste before they parted. Yeah, well, I tried Datbeo, he said before his mother picked up another form. And just who's going to pay for all of these renovations? She asked. Naruto sighed and nodded. Well, Shien's temple brought in a lot of income and I've also called in some favors. I remember Kazuhana-san, Toki-san, and Haruna-san from some of my days back on Team 7. All 3 of them offered to help pay for the island's development in exchange for partnering with the island in terms of technology, he said. Isn't this technically illegal? She asked. Her son smiled. Technically no. The island isn't exactly owned by the Uzumaki. We were just the first settlers there. Haku's the daimyo. She has her say in what the island does and doesn't do. Besides, this helps Hinoken's cover as most won't expect Konoha to come back here. However, I assume this wasn't why you came to me tonight. He asked. Kushina pinched his cheek. Oh, so I need a reason to see you. You've grown a little too pretentious as of late. She said before he silenced her with another kiss. Her resolve then melted away. Grumbling, the Uzumaki woman spoke. I take it your spirits told you about Danzo? She asked. Naruto stopped writing and frowned. Yeah, never seen anything like it. Memory loss for spirits, who'd have thunk it? He replied back, shifting from one form to the next. Kushina stopped his writing and pulled his eyes to her. Due to your banishment, I want you to investigate Danzo. Yura will go with you. Try and find out what happened and maybe investigate why your spirits lost their memories. Also, I'll be sending Chiriku-san with you. He'll be mentoring you during your trip. Whatever's wrong with you, we need to find it, she said. Naruto's smile faltered for a moment, though he tried to keep it up. And what about you guys? He asked, his tone notably lower. We'll be going back to Konoha. I've authorized Yugao to look into the Jishinists that broke into our home. Sochi, please tell me if there's anything that's bothering you, Kushina said earnestly, almost a little vulnerable. For there to be something evil of her son that she hadn't recognized didn't sit well with her. Unfortunately, Naruto shook his head. I don't know, Ka-chan. I really don't. Being with all of you has made me the happiest I've ever been. I can't think of a single moment where I thought otherwise. I love you. I love you so much, he said. Despite herself, Kushina sighed blissfully. I love you too, Sochi, the redhead answered as she leaned her head on her son's neck while Naruto continued to work. The 2 Uzumaki stayed in their room, silently holding each other's hands until the hours grew long into the night. 3721. Chapter 61. KG, I'm convinced. Quote, in this life, we have to make many choices. Some are very important choices. Some are not. Many of our choices are between good and evil. The choices we make, however, determine to a large extent our happiness or our unhappiness, because we have to live with the consequences of our choices. By James E. Faust. I see. So that's the plan. You don't seem too happy about it, Yuna said as she walked with Sasuke through the town and dirt roads of Uzushiogakure. They just left a local sandwich shop, eating on the go to enjoy some private time. I'm not. Naruto's an idiot, but I'd sooner believe he graduated top of the class instead of him intentionally hurting the village to the point that he'd need to be banished, the Uchiha said as he ate his sandwich. Yuna stared up at the bright sky, her black trench coat moving in the cold breeze. You really care about him, don't you? She asked. Sasuke grunted before Yuna nudged him with her shoulder. Don't you, me. Tell me what's really the problem, she said as she waved at a couple of men and women, the latter of whom giggled at the Uchiha couple. One of them praised the two, offering them a cold case of fresh krill, shrimp, and high-quality tuna for the entire households in the upper parts of the island. Naturally, Yuna tried to decline, but the gifts were all but forced into her hands. And take this fruit as well, Yuna-chan. It's supposed to be good for child rearing. One of the older ladies said. Yuna's smile quivered while she reluctantly took the fruits and other gifts offered to them. It turned out Makoto was right when she told her that middle-aged women love to gossip. Yuna didn't see it, but Sasuke truly smiled when he saw the joy on her face. In fact, when he looked at the island of Uzushio, he marveled at its beauty. What started out as a simple ask for permission for the local fishing season quickly turned itself into a full bustling land of economy and prosperity. When Sasuke's feet hit the dirt path, he honestly felt like that young child who roamed the streets of the Uchiha compound. Even without Naruto, he could see the ghosts and the illusions of his old family in this new one. Never before, even when roaming through Konoha, had he felt this serene feeling. Everything here made sense to the Uchiha heir. It was a type of serenity that made him long to return here. And of course, it was all done by Uzumaki Naruto, his dead last, loser teammate. Thanks to Naruto, Sasuke had achieved his revenge. He got the answers he sought, some of them he wasn't happy with. He'd been forced to face the sins of his clan and the weight as a Konoha shinobi. Worse than all of that, he absolutely loathed Danzo, no Konoha, for forcing his brother to make such a horrid choice. All of it to carry on the burden alone, to be hated by everyone merely for doing his part in the long run. Yet, there was none of that here. Sasuke saw only unity and a peace he thought might never exist. Now, as Yuna became overwhelmed with gifts, he thought about rebuilding the Uchiha family, and making sure none of them would have to decide between their family and their village anymore. The raven-haired swordsman walked over to his lover. He grabbed some of the gifts. Thank you for the stuff. We'll make sure everyone gets their share. For now, we have important business to take care of. Thank you, he said as he grabbed Yuna's arm and pulled her away. Such a gentleman. We need more young men like that in this world. One of them chuckled as Yuna snorted. There's nothing gentle about this, she laughed while Sasuke smirked. You can thank me later, he said as he pulled her through the rest of the town. Yes, Sasuke would protect this. This was something worth protecting. It was for that reason that he wouldn't let Naruto become evil. For the place that the Dobi helped grow, he'd make it a place to return to. Always. With Kushina in his arms, Naruto quietly slept in the bed, reveling in the smell of his mother's hair. Her hands gently stroked his arms as their legs intertwined beneath the sheets. Minutes seemed to roll by so slowly until the blonde heard the sound of a deep, calming hum. In order for the day to begin, the first piece of life must take itself through the battle of the rising sun. Good morning, Shikyo-sama, Chiraku said as he materialized in front of the sleeping couple. Of course, it wouldn't have stayed that way. Naruto turned over and spotted the monk standing next to them. 5 more minutes, he said with a groan while Chiraku chuckled. The illusion of time precedes us all, Shikyo-sama. Whether by day or by night, good and evil shall flow until the end of the universe. It is by our choices we decided if it should end in a good death or an evil one. Come and learn with me, Chiraku said as he floated out the window. Naruto groaned. Oh great, more philosophy. He'd already gotten a lot of that from Ero Sennin. Still, it wasn't like he wasn't prepared for this. Indeed, he wanted to figure out what was wrong with him. He'd have to start somewhere. Can I at least eat my breakfast? He asked. For true understanding, man must live on the words taught to him and not simply on the food that is grown from the dew of the ground, Chiraku answered. What the fuck did that even mean? A groan, Naruto slipped out of bed, careful to not wake Kushina. He loved his mother dearly, but she was fucking scary if she was woken up too early. He quickly got dressed and slipped out of the room. He rubbed his head and walked downstairs. When he came, he noticed Konoha sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in her hands. "Good morning, Naruto-san," she said while he walked past her. "Never took you for a coffee drinker," he said with another yawn. He tried to cover his mouth just to not appear too impolite, but his brain hadn't caught up with the rest of his body just yet. Conan curiously watched him for a moment or two before she smiled. "I had not thought your city carried such a fine brew. It does soothe the nerves when used in moderation," she said as he opened the door. Naruto never saw the appeal of coffee. It tasted disgusting, it crashed you badly when it was done, and there was nothing sweet about it at all. What did people even see in that stuff? "Well, enjoy your coffee. I've gotta go find some inner peace," he said as he left her alone. He stepped out into the back of the house where Chiriku was waiting for him. The spirit smiled, his entire transparent body seemed to be glowing. "Take off your shoes, Naruto-sama. The earth is your home and the ground is your road. Why must you part with them to walk in the directions that you go?" he asked. Naruto sighed. "Did my mother pay for the extra philosophical stuff, or are you just coming up with this on the fly?" the Kyuubi Jinchuriki asked. Naturally, the former monk of the fire temple didn't answer. Instead, he planted his feet on the ground and walked away. Naruto just watched him go before he rolled his eyes. "Well, it's not like I'm not used to going out without shoes sometimes," he said as he took them off and tossed them to the side. As expected, the ground felt very cold. Slowly, Spirit and Master walked through the trees of Uzushiogakure. Naruto absently noted the sounds of the trees and the brush of cold air. The stones beneath his feet were a little irritating, but he'd dealt with worse. In fact, this reminded him of those days without shoes, walking through the village waiting for his stipend to kick in. A frown appeared on Naruto's face. Where did those thoughts come from? He never thought he'd have such thoughts anymore, considering how great his life had been going. When one feels lost in the mind, so too will they feel lost in the paths outside the mind. Look upon the ground, Naruto-sama. It seems to stretch far beyond the eyes, does it not? It is simple and very narrow. Yet, what do you feel when you step along it? the monk asked. I feel the cold, hard, rock-ridden ground, Naruto answered. Indeed, each strike upon the foot is a strike upon the way of your life. Some steps will hurt you and others will make you bleed. Many will make you trip and fall, asking you to wish to put on shoes, the ways to protect yourself on your walk toward your destiny. I came to understand that you don't believe in fate and destiny, Naruto-sama, Chiriku said. Naruto's mouth thinned. He wished he could answer like he always did when he was younger, but the words were stuck in his lips. He'd been challenged on destiny so many times. He wanted to become Hokage. He said he would time and again, but lately it just seemed like the whole damn world and its shit stopped him from doing so. No, he sure as hell didn't believe in that crap Neji spouted back in the Chunin exam, but he didn't know what else to do. I don't know anymore, he said, stumbling slightly in his walk. Naruto-sama, you are a young man. Except that sometimes it is okay not to know. In many cases, we fall short because we know too much. Sometimes, it is better to not know, Chiriku said. Naruto tried not to snort. Well, how am I supposed to figure out what I want to do with my life if I don't know? He asked. Chiriku slowly stopped and turned back to his young master. That is for you to figure out, Naruto-sama. In fact, that is what all of us struggle to figure out. It is that struggle which shall define how we will end up. Every choice, right or wrong, moves not just us but those around us. Through the actions we take, we cause pain and suffering, joy and elation, loss and gain, to all around us. This is much to learn in the conviction of one's own beliefs and whether those beliefs will either damn us or save us when the times get hard, he answered. The former fire temple monk then led Naruto near a large pond. Chiriku sat on the ground, maintaining his hand form as Naruto had seen some monks do. The blonde sat with him. Naruto-sama, I can sense you're upset and deeply disturbed. Do you know why? The monk asked. Naruto sighed. What the hell did everyone want him to say? He got that question almost 2 times yesterday. At this point, he didn't even know if he was fine anymore. He'd just been told by the god of death that there was some type of evil inside him that drew evil spirits to him. How the hell was he supposed to feel when stuff like that came up? I think if I knew why we wouldn't be here, Datbeo, he answered, grabbing a stone and tossing it into the lake. Perhaps, perhaps not. Some would say that if you knew, then you'd need even more instruction. When we learn ourselves, we realize just how little there is to know. As shinobi, no, as humans, we constantly meant to look for the truth in all things. Yet, there are the lies we tell the world and the lies we tell ourselves, all to confirm the truths we think we know, he said. Naruto blinked. Sure. What you said, the blonde answered. Chiriku laughed. You must be hungry. Why don't you fish in this pond here? Feast upon the land given to you, he said. Curiously, Naruto looked around for a moment. He then turned back to the bald man. Go, fishing. You want me to go buy a fishing rod? He asked. Why buy what the earth gives you? Prosperity is measured in many different ways. One does not need riches to find their places in the world, nor does one need to be famous. One must remain firm in their own convictions and find their own path, the man answered, a rather serene smile on his face. Naruto sighed again, wondering what the hell any of that was supposed to mean, again. He sat with Chiriku for a little while, his stomach grumbling. He hadn't eaten last night. He wasn't in the mood for it. In fact, he just buried himself in work on the people of Uzushio before he passed other things to Haku. Finally, after some time, Naruto just sighed. Fine, if Chiriku wasn't gonna instruct him on what to do, then he'd just make his own. He'd lived on his own before and provided for himself on numerous occasions. In fact, there were some days he had to eat insects simply because he didn't have enough money in the stipend to cover the rent and academy supplies. Then again, some people have said that certain insects were supposed to be healthy, but they certainly didn't taste like it. Meanwhile, Chiriku watched Naruto work. He grabbed a sturdy branch and moved through the forest tying some strong vines together. The deceased monk smiled to himself as he continued to meditate. It seemed that, at least subconsciously, the Uzumaki head had begun to understand. Unfortunately, Chiriku could also sense the dark thoughts that laid deep within his master's heart. While he couldn't ascertain its proper origins, he was aware of its existence. The brightest lights sometimes cast the darkest shadows, the Fire Temple monk thought as he watched Naruto fashion some type of hook. He then threw the line into the water. What are you doing, Naruto-sama? Chiriku asked. Naruto exhaled, trying to keep himself from growing annoyed. I'm fishing like you wanted me to, he said slowly, almost as if going any faster would be bad for his already poor mood. The young shinobi and the deceased monk sat on the ground for 1 to 2 hours, the former growing more and more impatient. His stomach wouldn't stop growling and the hook barely caught anything. Can I please go buy something to eat now? Naruto asked. You are upset. Why? The monk asked. Because I'm hungry. Naruto exclaimed as he fell back and clawed at his hair. Wasn't this whole lesson supposed to be about inner peace and all that? If that was the case, then Naruto sure as hell wasn't feeling a whole lot of peace at the moment. In fact, this was starting to feel like back when he was little. The cold air, no shoes, no food, no fucking place to live, this entire thing just felt like one big dream. You have gone without eating before. Many in the Konoha military are taught to even eat the bare minimum on assignments. You have also been released from your duties. It is usual that we become irritated when we feel impatience. Tell me, what have you to be impatient over? He asked. Naruto chuckled humorlessly. I leave with Yura today to retrace the steps of Taji and Terra to find Danzo. I think I'd perform better if I was full, he replied. Do the lion perform at its best when it's full, or does it perform at its best when it is hungry with nothing to lose? Eat what you can, save what you cannot. Maintain peace in action and that peace shall transition to your very state of being, Chiriku said. Someone save Naruto, please. Hey, anyone seen Ni-chan? We gotta go soon. Yuri called while she strapped on her sandals. Her adventure with him had already been brought to a halt. She wasn't in the greatest of moods. Now, she wasn't one to rush weddings, but she hoped Naruto and Kushina got married soon. This, no sex, stuff was starting to get under her skin. Kushina walked down the stairs, her Hinoken robes fitting her body. He should be back soon. I already have Chiriku beginning his training or spiritual studies. Also Yuri, when you get back, I want you to get more into your studies of Fuinjutsu. I know it's been out of your control a couple of times, but you've let your skill falter a little. Make sure that doesn't continue to happen, the redhead replied. Truth be told, she wasn't in the best mood either. However, her reason was a bit different. She wasn't expecting her son to be gone so early. She'd felt him leave, but was too tired to wake up and stop him. The bed quickly got cold without him and she hadn't been able to indulge in his beautiful eyes. She actually cursed herself for even suggesting the idea of this monk stuff. If it was going to interrupt her morning with her son, then maybe it wasn't good after all. Well, or maybe she was just complaining. That was definitely one thing her son inherited from her. Perhaps it was an Uzumaki thing. Got it, Yuri sighed as she finished all of her preparations. She turned her head and noticed Sasuke and Yuna come through the door. Yeah, I should head back to Konoha as well. I have guard duty with Hana-san on the walls. One of the more boring jobs assigned to the Chunin. Good luck on your mission, Sasuke, Yuna said. Sasuke sighed, but nodded as he and Yuna set down the spoils they received from the village. What's this? Yuri asked. The people of the towns below gave them to us, the Uchiha said as Makoto, Yugao, and Kakashi appeared in the living room. The latter of the three smiled. Well, it seems we're all ready to continue our duties. Well, Yugao, you're in charge. What's our move? Kakashi asked. The purple-haired woman took a step forward. We'll head home for additional supplies. We'll gather at my house. Once we're ready, we'll move out. I want to look into the record of regular Jashin movements. It's not the first time we've dealt with that cursed cult. In fact, I want to check some rumored, abandoned cult sites, she said. Sasuke frowned. You think there'll be something left? He asked. Yugao turned to him. It would make sense. With the existence of the shinigami, I won't be so disillusioned now to not think one like Jashin doesn't exist. If such a god does, then there must be a reason they targeted Naruto's family specifically. If Jashin can give them orders, then I have only two theories. Either, he commanded them to begin this little mission of theirs weeks before, or they were close enough to do it at last minute, Makoto finished. Yugao firmly nodded while Kushina leaned against the wall. What are the chances we have them in Konoha? Sasuke asked. The room fell into a very tense silence. Then we'll never find them, Kushina said with a frown. Why's that? Rin asked, having been next to Kakashi when he entered the room. Because they'll have been under our noses for years and we've never suspected them even once. In fact, who knows how many murders in Konoha might be because of them, Kakashi replied. Yuri waved for everyone's attention. Alright, we don't know for sure if they are in Konoha. There's already enough suspicion going on. Let's not start doing it to our own people. Maybe you guys should just focus elsewhere. If those leads don't turn up, then we can start this whole conspiracy novel in the village. She said. Everyone stared at her for a long while. Enough time passed and Yuri started to feel a little self-conscious. What? She asked. Who are you and what have you done with the dumb girl who reads too many romance novels? Sasuke asked. Hey, I am not dumb. Yuri exclaimed while the others laughed at her expense. While the group laughed, they heard the opening of the sliding door. All were surprised when Naruto came through the door. He didn't look pleased. In fact, he looked a little angry. They could kind of see what. He was completely soaked. Whoa, Ni-chan. What happened to you? Yuri asked. A lot of spiritual lessons, Yuri-chan. I need to take a shower, he said as he stomped through the room and up the stairs. Kushina watched him go and blinked. Chiriku, what happened? She asked, not taking her gaze off the stairs to their rooms. The monk appeared behind his mistress. He smiled warmly. A very successful first lesson, Kushina-sama, he replied, peace found in his demeanor. Meanwhile, the matriarch of the Uzumaki clan just blinked curiously. What the hell happened? When Naruto returned, he greeted everyone in his clothes. He then marched into the refrigerator. He grabbed a cold sandwich from it and took a bite without much concern. Makoto giggled. I didn't know you liked to eat avocado sandwiches, Naruto, she replied. The blonde snorted. I don't. My hunger is overpowering my distaste, he answered as he finished his sandwich and went for another one. Was he always this hungry? Yuri asked. You haven't seen the Dobi eat ramen growing up. You'd swear he could pass for a cousin of the Akamichi sometimes, Sasuke replied, which got a laugh out of everyone. Once Naruto finished his second sandwich, he leaned back against a chair. Its rocking motion soothed him greatly. You, gonna tell us why you looked like a soapsy sponge? Yugao asked. No, if anyone wants to ask, then you can run to Konoha on your own. Any more questions? He asked. Sasuke folded his arms. You fell in a lake, didn't you? The Uchiha asked. No, Naruto replied as he folded his arms and scowled at the wall. Kushina and Yuri would never say it, but their lover looked cute when he was angry. Right. Look Naruto, can you just make the portal to Konoha so we can go? We need to begin investigating the people who attack your clan. I've already worked out a few leads and you need to get started retracing the steps of those two spirits of yours, Yugao said while Naruto scowled, grumbling to himself. Yeah, well maybe I don't feel like opening portals Datbeo. Go run for all I care. He said while the other's sweat dropped. What the hell happened to him? They all thought before Yuri sauntered over to her lover. Now Ni-chan, don't be so mad. Tell you what, if you help us, I'll do the thing. Yuri said while everyone watched Naruto's frown waver. The thing? He asked. Yuri nodded. Yup. With the apron. Or we could do page 126 of you know what, she whispered to him before he jumped up to his feet. One caravan portal to Konoha at your service. Naruto exclaimed as he charged outside. Yuri laughed until she saw the faces of everyone. She quickly saw the grins on all of those with the Sharingan active. Kakashi chuckled perversely while Sasuke and Makoto shook their heads. Yuna whistled innocently while Kushina, Yugao, and Rin looked confused. It was then that Yuri blushed. Oh, right, Uchiha could read lips. Well, she was gonna get teased about that for so many years. Am I missing something? Yugao asked. Indeed you are, but it's not our business. Perhaps we should continue on. Naruto certainly seemed motivated enough, Kakashi said while Kushina narrowed her eyes. It seemed some secrets were being kept from her. Meanwhile, the others appeared outside, waving goodbye to Rin as they left while Naruto held out his hand. Jikuyugami, he said. Quickly, the familiar portal exploded into existence, ready to take the Hinokan team back to Konoha. Alright, we'll see you soon. Stay strong, Naruto. Yugao said as Kakashi, Makoto, Sasuke, and Yuna waved him goodbye. The blonde smiled and waved them goodbye. The five went through the portal. That left Kushina and Yuri. Both hugged Naruto and sighed. I guess we'll have to put the life journey on hold, Yuri said with a sad smile before she kissed her lover. Naruto returned the kiss and Yuri went through the portal as well. Kushina touched Naruto's chest and sighed. You won't be alone, Sochi. Not anymore, I swear it, she said. She kissed him on the lips and left through the portal as well. Slowly, Naruto watched it close and the smile on his face soon fell away. He rubbed the back of his head until someone touched him from behind. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki turned around and he noticed Yura standing with him, having woken up a few moments ago. He grabbed her hands and kissed them, doing so made him very happy. Her smile always seemed to let him know that while there wasn't much to smile about, there was still something worth it. Should we go now? She asked. Naruto smiled and brushed a piece of her hair. Not yet. We'll have to figure out where we're going first. Yeah, but we'll form a team of our own. If it's something related to Danzo, then we shouldn't go at it alone, he said. Yura nodded. Agreed. Who do you suggest? I'll follow your lead, Ni-sama, she replied. Naruto scratched his hair and hummed. Come with me. I think I've got some ideas, he said with a wide grin while Yura blinked curiously. The portal opened in front of the Uzumaki clan household. The 5 members of Hinokan stepped out its purplish doors and onto the soft grass. I'd say home sweet home, but it doesn't really feel like it, Yuri said while the others slowly nodded. Okay, I'll be heading out to meet with the other Chunin for assignment duties. May your blade be swift, and your enemies a swifter death. Good luck, Sasuke, Yuna said. She kissed his cheek and vanished in a blur of speed. The Uchiha heir watched her leave while Kushina handed Yuri a book. Here, this will help you study, the matriarch of the clan said. The younger redhead took the book and smiled. Guess I'd better get to studying then. Good luck on your mission guys, she said as she opened the door to the main compound and walked inside. That left the 5 members of Hinokan alone. Kushina stepped in front of them all. Be safe out there, Databane. Remember to have each other's back and don't do anything too stupid. I've got to go see Tsunade again, she said, none too pleased about it. Makoto smirked. Try to keep the irritation off your face, she suggested. Kushina rolled her eyes. Don't hold your breath if I don't, but I'll keep it in mind. She is still the Hokage after all, the Uzumaki redhead replied to her best friend before she dashed off as well. Yugao then turned to the others. Remember the plan. Dismissed, she said. They all disappeared from the area, preparing to make their own move. Meanwhile, Kushina continued to head towards the Hokage mansion. She stared at the Hokage stone faces. More specifically, she stared at the face of her former husband. It seemed odd. She'd never looked at him much until now. Even now, he rested in the belly of the shinigami. She wondered what he'd think of her choices. He wondered what he'd think of how she'd chosen to live her life. Of course, she had no regrets about it, but she felt a little conscious of this fact. Kushina landed on the ground amongst the traveling civilians. She stepped inside the admin office and past the personnel. She then made her way towards Tsunade's office. With an inhale and exhale, she knocked on the door. Enter, Tsunade said. Kushina pushed open the door and stepped inside. There, she eyed Tsunade working with a few other chunin. At least 3 of them had piles of accounting books in their hands. There were a lot of papers on the floor as well. When Tsunade looked up, she saw Kushina. The 2 women had a hard stare off for a moment or two. The chunin in the room glanced between them both a little nervously. Clearly, the dragon and the tiger hated each other today. As for Tsunade, she could still see the sheer anger in Kushina's unpassionate eyes. Her verdict on Naruto was still fresh in the Uzumaki matriarch's mind. Well, it was only a day ago. No reason it shouldn't be. I see you're still mad at me, Tsunade said. Kushina didn't dignify that with a response. She just settled for glaring at the Godime Hokage. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and exhaled. You're all dismissed, she told the chunin. The helpers quickly bowed and removed themselves in a hurry. The only sound was that of the door closing behind the redhead. Look Kushina, I'm very busy. If you're just going to give me the silent treatment, then do it somewhere else. I'm not going to apologize for what I did. Now, I admit I fucked up when I promised you that I'd help take care of Naruto. I'll live with that until the day I die. I've got more than just Naruto to think about. If Minato were alive, he'd see my point, Tsunade claimed. Kushina remained silent. Tsunade tightened her hand into a fist. The desk crumbled from the dense chakra being pushed through the Godime's fist. Kushina, I'm not Minato, Tsunade. You'd do well to remember that. You might be the Hokage, but you'd do well to remember not to make an enemy out of me. There's much I can do to you while remaining loyal to Konoha. The only reason I'm here is to tell you that Makoto, Kakashi, Yugao, and Sasuke will be taking the mission to investigate the Jashin members who invaded the village. I knew you'd make the mission anyway and got ahead on it. I'll also be leaving on some summoner business, Kushina said. Tsunade leaned forward. Oh, and what type of summoner business would that be? She asked. The Godime wasn't stupid. She knew Kushina must have been talking about Naruto. Why she'd want to do that wasn't known to the Hokage, but that was already impossible. Naruto's investigating the whereabouts of Danzo. I'm hoping to back him up. It'll be something to keep him busy and we can make use of it. 2 of my son's spirits claim they found something crucial relating to Danzo, but they can't remember what it is. My son's going to retrace their steps, she answered. Tsunade blinked. They can't remember? The blonde asked. Kushina shrugged. That's what we're investigating. The Godime tapped her finger on her desk. And what does this have to do with summoner duties? Tsunade asked. Kushina rolled her eyes, but spoke anyway. Well, it's possible something's happened to them. As one who monitors the dead, Sochi has to make sure that the balance is maintained there. From what I've known of the spirits we've summoned and contacted, they've all had their memories intact. If there's something preventing them from performing their duties, then we'll have to know about it. Wouldn't want you banishing me as well if I somehow get taken over, she said. If that's the story you're sticking with, then I think it's better that I remain firm in this course of action. If even you and Naruto can be overrun by spirits, then I can't have you in the village, Tsunade said before the walls cracked around the room. The Godime noticed the Uzumaki matriarch's hair slowly turn from red to silver. For Sochi's sake, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, Kushina replied before Tsunade held up her hands in surrender. Alright, we can stop with the backhanded comments. Look, you'll have to wait on your summoner duties. I have an assignment for you personally. I need you with me. You'll be going with me to Kurigakure. Konoha will be having a joint operation with the Village of the Mist. It was one of the things we agreed upon for the trade routes. It was also meant as a sort of international program for young genin and chunin to experience the growth and circumstances of other nations. Try as we might, Konoha's not as good as Kurigakure in crafting blades, especially with their production of steel, iron, and other materials. Additionally, Kiri has a need for the high-quality wool, leather, and meat that's produced from the pristine forests and animals found in Konoha. I hope negotiations will go smoothly with the Mizukage if you're there with me, Tsunade said. Kushina folded her arms. This was not something she anticipated. It was also pretty clear Tsunade had this idea in her head long before any of this. Clearly, there was something going on here that Kushina hadn't thought of. It was also pretty clear that she couldn't turn down this assignment. Well, maybe that was the wrong way to put it. She could turn it down, but it wouldn't look good on her and the clan if she did. Politics were a very messy affair, especially for noble clans. Fine, but you know better than to overlook the god of death. Also, I'll maintain the professional demeanor expected between you and I, but don't you dare think you and I are finished. Kushina scowled before she eased herself. When do we leave? She then asked. Tsunade sighed. 2 days, she answered. As soon as that was answered, Kushina vanished from the room. This left Tsunade alone as she stared at the cracked walls and floors. The lone Senju leaned back into her chair and hummed. She stared at the portraits of the cage. Grandfather, I promise I'm doing my best. I'm trying to live up to your expectations, but I'm not sure what to do, she thought as she stared back at the village. Sometimes, the duty of a cage was too much for any one person to handle. Nevertheless, that was the meaning of sacrifice. Naruto and Yura walked through the paved-out forested route a few minutes away from the Uzumaki clan household. It didn't take either of them long to see a large clan compound. It didn't take Yura too long to figure out where they were. I see. Though, I'm happy to see her, why would we come here? She asked. Naruto saw a few guards standing at the front of the compound and smirked. I think this is a good time to relive some old experiences. Plus, I think she'll welcome the chance to get off the island, he said as the guards quickly took notice of them. One of them smiled. Good morning, Uzumaki-san. What brings you to the Fuma clan? One asked. Naruto waved to them. I was hoping to speak to Sasama. Is she here? He asked. The other guard shook his head. Sasama's been employed under Haku-sama as have a number of the Fuma clan. Currently, she's trying out for the force under Momochi Zabuza. What did you need her for? He asked. We'd like her to join a team we were putting together. We've received some information related to a former Konoha trader and we wished for her help in tracking him down, Yura answered. The two guards looked at each other. Well, how about this? We'll inform Hanzaki-sama that you're looking for some people to join your team. I'm sure we have a few clan members available. After all, the Uzumaki and the Fuma have begun a great beneficial relationship after you've allowed us refuge here. The prosperity has never been better. I'll be right back, the guard said as they watched him leave. Not even 5 minutes passed before he returned. Follow me, he said. They did so. As the two Uzumaki walked with the guard, they marveled at the work produced by the Fuma clan. It seemed they'd already begun commissioning some of the island's builders and carpenters for the clan's expansion. In fact, there was a lot of the natural forest they'd begun using for their personal means. Naruto and Yura came up to a door with the guard. Hanzaki-sama, the Uzumaki clan have paid us a visit. They have a request to make, the guard said. The two heard a sigh from behind the door. Send them in, the voice called. The guard opened the door and ushered the two in. He then bowed and walked away. Naruto and Yura entered, taking note of the room. It was a very large area filled with green tatami mats. There was also a line of tables going from the door all the way to the back of the room. At the very end, sat a large man with dark brown hair. It seemed he'd been busy signing documents, not unlike a certain Hokage. I'd welcome you both a bit more politely, especially since you all but saved our hides, but I'm a little short on time here. I have a meeting with a few supporters of the clan. This job hasn't gotten any easier as I've gotten older. I bet you'd never think a man who orchestrated the robbings of people would be dressed in fancy clothes and rubbing shoulders with merchants and the like. All because our Sasama had to deal with a troublemaker, Hanzuki said with a smirk as he looked at Naruto. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki chuckled. Technically, you attacked me. You can't say that was my fault. Hanzuki chuckled before he leaned back and sighed. So what can I do for you? He asked. Naruto stepped forward. Well, I'm going to be looking into some matters concerning Konoha. I was hoping I could get Sasama as part of my team, but the guard said she was joining a unit for Haku. I won't take her away from that if she's busy. The guard said you might know anyone free to come. He questioned. Hanzuki sighed and rubbed his head. Yeah, Sasama originally wasn't gonna join, but I heard she was offered the position by Zabuza. She spent a few nights thinking it over and accepted in the end. Still, if you need someone for your team, then I've got someone who's been itching to go out more, he said before he called for an attendant. Tell Kodoheim I need her, he said. The attendant nodded and left for about 5 minutes. They returned with a black-haired woman. Her face, beautiful in appearance, gave a small smile as she stepped inside. Well, our clan's savior has decided to pay us a visit. You should tell Yuri to come around more often. Anyway, I'm told I finally have something to do. The leader of the Fuma clan leaned his elbows on his table. Stop complaining. You could stand to do more training anyway. Anyway, Naruto's apparently rounding up some people for a team he needs. Here's your chance to get out more. Also, this'll be a good opportunity for you to look into proper investors for the Fuma clan, he replied. Kodoheim brushed a piece of her hair, turning to Naruto and Yura. What are the details for this little team? She asked. Naruto turned towards her. Ever heard of Shimura Danzo? He asked. Kodoheim's frown deepened, folding her arms in thought. The name sounds familiar. If I recall, Orochimaru might have said it in passing, I guess. What about him? He a part of the Konoha tree hugger family or something? Yura snickered to herself. This woman really reminded her of Tayuya in some aspects. Something like that. We've gained some unconfirmed intel about him and we're investigating the matter, the redhead replied. Kodoheim hummed. And, now that we're not good, why would you want our help? Just assemble a team of Konoha shinobi on your own, she suggested. Kodoheim, don't be rude. Hanzuki exclaimed, but Naruto waved him off. It was a good suggestion after all. It was rather suspicious that the Uzumaki clan would need the Fuma clan's help before turning to already available resources. Well, long story short, I've been banished from Konoha. Aside from my mother, my clan, and our team, I don't really have a lot of friends right now, he answered. Hanzuki and Kodoheim widened their eyes. The penalties of banishment varied from nation to nation, but hearing that even the peace-loving Konoha would resort to such a manner was shocking. Banished. What did you? Kodoheim, Hanzuki warned with a harsh gaze. Some things were better off not being said. Luckily, the woman took the hint and slowly nodded. Alright, and what about pay? She asked. Naruto sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Tell you what, I'm sure a guy like Danzo's got to have some caches of funds used to finance his projects. There's no way someone like him doesn't know the flow of business. Ka-chan really tried to drill that into me before I became the clan head. If we do find him, I don't think he's gonna have a need for those anymore. If we don't, then I'll pay you the rate of a B rank mission. How's that? He asked. Kodoheim eyed Hanzuki before she turned back to Naruto. She smirked. When do we leave? She asked. Just get ready to leave at a moment's notice. We'll meet at the Uzumaki clan grounds, he said. The female Fuma member nodded and disappeared down the hall to get herself organized. With a wave goodbye to Hanzuki, Naruto and Yura left. Their travels then brought them to a small dome-like building. Naruto opened the door. I never liked coming here, Yura shivered as she stared at the fluorescent lights in the ceiling. Naruto laughed. Oh come on, she's not that bad, he replied as they walked through about 5 hallways filled with numerous dead fish, frogs, and other small animals in containers. Shut the hell up and sit still. You're the one who came to me after all. Jugo, strap him to the chair. I've got charts to go through. Naruto and Yura glanced at each other before the former pushed open another door. The two Uzumaki were greeted with the sight of numerous animals, some in different colors and others with very unorthodox characteristics. Yura tapped one of the glasses as she saw a lizard flick its tongue at her before it crawled off to its corner. Further into the room, the two Uzumaki spotted Suigetsu in a tank of water with at least 20 to 30 fish. He banged on the glass while Karen typed away on a computer. Jugo was off to the side. The two Uzumaki took note of the long chains wrapped around his arms. Sasuke had spoken with both about the man's violent tendencies. He spoke highly of Jugo's strength. Naruto also noticed that the three weren't alone. There were plenty of working men and women, most regular people pushing boxes left and right. There seemed to be a few more intellectual people. Most stood on the upper floors going on their fancy data in their plain white coats. The blonde raised an eyebrow. When the hell did all these people start populating the island? He didn't remember seeing stuff like this in any of the reports that Haku sent. Having to put it aside for now, Naruto zeroed in on Karen. "Yo, cousin. How's it going?" Naruto asked, making the redhead turn to him. "As if my life couldn't get more hectic. What do you want? If you're here to waste my time then do it later when I'm not so busy," she said. Naruto chuckled. "I wonder if you'd talk to Sasuke like that if he were here." The young woman turned to him with a glare. "Of course I wouldn't. He's a lot cooler than you after all. Anyway, what do you want?" she asked. Yura snorted. "Do we really need this one? Clearly, she doesn't have good taste." Karen quickly turned around. "I think I have better taste than most," she fired back. "Could have fooled me," Yura said. Two scowled at each other while Naruto rolled his eyes. He knew not to take anything Karen said seriously. It seemed that wasn't the case for Yura. Then again, these two never seemed to like each other. He didn't exactly know why, but he knew better than to get between them. He'd rather not test the limits of how many times he could, especially when against Uzumaki women. Instead, he walked over to Suigetsu. "Well, if it isn't the head of the island. What do you want?" the white-haired young man asked, his face barely visible in the water. "What are you even doing in here?" Naruto asked. Suigetsu shrugged. "You're asking the wrong person. Apparently your territory's a prime agricultural state. Not surprised, the stuff grown and cooked here is fucking delicious. Some even believe it's a place that helps some medicinal properties. Blah blah land value, blah blah, prosperity. Anyway, not to take up too much of my already spent time, but what do you want?" Suigetsu asked. Naruto rolled his eyes, but spoke anyway. "Yeah well, I'm gonna have to take up more of your time. I need you, Karen, and Jugo to come with me. We're gonna be investigating the whereabouts of Shimura Danzo," he replied. Suigetsu remained silent for a moment before he laughed. "I think you've gotten a little too comfortable with us being around. Keep in mind we came here and stayed here as part of Sasuke's team. We didn't join you guys because we're all buddy-buddy with you. Besides, as much as I hate that bastard, I still haven't forgotten that I had to give up Zabuza's sword because of you. Also, forgive me if I don't think you can keep that guy over there calm," Suigetsu said, thumbing over to Jugo. Naruto eyed the man for a moment. The orange-haired man seemed settled on observing them for a little while. He offered a bow to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The blonde nodded and turned back to Suigetsu. "First, you can stop making excuses. If you want Zabuza's sword so badly then I guess you'd better spend more time training and pry it from his hands. Second, I'm pretty sure Sasuke won't mind me borrowing his team members for a little bit. Third, I can take care of Jugo. Have more faith in me than that. Fourth, if you do help me, I'll give you the rare thing for the next 2 months." Suigetsu widened his eyes as he stared at the head of the Uzumaki clan. "You son of a bitch. You're not lying are you?" he asked. Naruto thumbed his chest. "Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word Datbeo," he replied. The wit-haired man sunk in the water for a moment. He'd been trying to get that damn thing for over a year now. It was supposed to be a new flavor and everything. He wanted to try it, but he'd woken up late and the queue to receive one had been monstrously long. The worst part was also that it could only be found on Uzushiobukar. Apparently, the company was starting up here. It was said to expand out to the elemental nations in the next few months. Unfortunately, that wasn't now. For free. For free. No line. No line. Suigetsu bit his lip and sighed. "If I do this for you, I also want a commission for a sword. I'm not paying for it. Those things and I'm down," he said. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but he shrugged. I suppose that's not too hard. Sure, why not, he said.